Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Bubble Man's World and welcome to Hash Church episode 160. I actually had to go back a couple of times and look at that because I thought, wow, 160. That's pretty awesome. I get confused with the wake and bakes and the hash churches, but everyone, welcome. I hope you're having a great day. I look forward to the show that we have ready for you today. I'm going to send out my links so I can get Monsieur Etienne into the room and all my other good friends. And I will send out the email as well. Of course, for those of you that have been paying attention, today is the day that we were going to have Jeremy on from Build a Soil and Peter on from Soil Balance. There was a little bit of drama that occurred online, and we just want to clear all that up and have a nice little conversation. And there's my brother from another mother. First in, as always, Etienne. Welcome, my friend.
Good morning, sir. How are things?
You know, things are pretty damn good. I'm feeling lovely. I got to squish some of that Where Is My Bike the other day. Got a 30% yield. And look at
Ooh. Oh, nice. 30% yield. Wow, that's a squisher, huh?
And not only that, it's haze through and through this Where's My Bike. It's terpenoline and pinene and D-limonene. It's so rich in these terpenes that it seems to be.
You can get cottonmouth just smelling it, right?
Oh my God, dude. It smells so good. When I first smelled it, it reminded me of like Soma's place in like 97, 98. It's pretty awesome. Yeah, exactly. I think that might have been, I'm not sure if he was still in the same place. I remember he moved way back when.
No, I think he moved right around 97, 98.
Right, yeah. Then he moved over to the Feiselkrat? Yeah, I think that's so. How are you doing, Sam?
Morning, Sam. After morning.
Howdy, howdy, howdy.
Does that sound right? Soma's near the Feiselkrat, isn't he?
I'm terrible with streets names, even though I've lived here for 30 years.
That's awesome, dude.
I know how to get everywhere, but I don't know what freaking street it is.
You're like Mark Rose, who lives in Kathmandu for 27 years and never learns the language.
It says Strat at the end of the street. That's all you know.
Hey, I wanna welcome Jeremy into the room. I had to mute your mic there, Jeremy, just when you're not talking because there's a bit of a reverberation. But Jeremy from Build a Soil, welcome, brother.
Hey, unmuted. Thanks, man. Thanks for having me. I hope the internet's acceptable here in my office. The keys are in my office. There was a wedding last night, so everybody that works for me was out having a good time, and so I decided to do it from my house. Can you hear me okay?
You know what? You're coming through perfectly. As long as everyone keeps their mics muted when each person is talking, we shouldn't have that reverberation. I'm also able to mute mics, so that's not too big of a problem. We got Peter just came in from Soil Balance, and he has a lovely guest with him. Welcome, both of you guys.
Thank you for having us, man. Nice to see you, brother.
Yeah. Excellent. So yeah, Hash Church today is part of the episode today is we got both Jeremy from Build a Soil and we got Peter and guest from Soil Balance. And I wanted to thank both of you guys for coming in today. It's a really cool thing when sort of, you know, you can have this sort of experience that happens out in social media, out on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook or all these things. It kind of got a little heated there for a while, and I thought, man, I really want to be able to bring these guys in and get this conversation sorted out so everyone can be on the same page. And I really want to thank both of you guys for coming in and being willing to do that, especially in this day and age where, you know, people might be a little bit freaked out. It's like, oh no, there's disagreement in the community. Well, we thrive on disagreement here in Hash Church. I think it's, you know, apples and apples is less than apples and oranges. And so that's my metaphor. I'm all about the quiver in this day and age of information. So I'm happy to have both sides here in Hash Church. And I think we could have a great little conversation in regards to, in regards to both what you guys are both doing, because I thought maybe a good idea would be to maybe have Jeremy give us a little background on Build a Soil and let us know what he's been up to. And then we could start the discussion in regards to, you know, some of the, I guess I would call it dramas that occurred in the last couple of weeks. Did you want to also maybe introduce your guest, Peter?
Yeah, absolutely. And real quick, this is the first time that I've gotten to speak with Jeremy. So hello, it's a pleasure to meet you and speak with you in person. And I know, Jeremy, that you've got quite a few questions for me. And the reason actually, everybody, for me being here today is because I'm looking forward to answering all of them, giving you and our audience some clarity. So thank you for making the time to speak to me. And real quick, if it's okay, Shannon, before I introduce you, I just wanted to say one thing really briefly. I wanted to share a few things with you about this whole situation. It's been pretty tough on me, my whole team, with what's been going on. But I've actually been able to realize that this whole thing has really been kind of a blessing for us. Jeremy, you took the time to protect the growers that you represent and point out and ask questions on all of the content on our site that is confusing or that could be looked at as misleading, calling us out on that. So you asked the hard questions, man, and I do respect that. And our goal real quick, as a company is to constantly improve ourselves and become a better company for this industry and our growers. So I do appreciate where he was coming from on that, Marcus. And I also did some research on his company. And honestly, I'm very grateful that there are companies like his that that have been working so hard to propel organic, no-till, sustainable cultivation methodologies. So I honor the work, that he's doing. I've been doing it for about 20 years, and I know how hard it is. So I can personally relate to how he wants to protect his clients. So I have no anger towards you, Jeremy, or the way that you've done things. I respect you for your work and the things that you're doing for the industry. So on a serious level, man, thank you. Thank you for that. And Shannon, I'm sorry.
Hi.
I just wanted to say that. This is Shannon Way. She's in charge of our company's public statements and PRs, and we're both going to pretty much take notes and try to learn as much as we can from this business meeting. So the first thing we're curious about is Jeremy's thoughts on the white paper that we put out after we hear, of course, about him and his company. So.
Yeah, and just before Jeremy starts, what I wanted to let everyone know, that I had never heard of Jeremy or Build a Soil before, but there's a lot of people in the community that I haven't heard about. But one thing I'll really say about Jeremy is he had an incredible group of people backing him. Jeremy may have come across aggressive, but that's because he's looking out for us. He always has been looking out for us. And man, people had great fucking things to say about you. And it's why I felt like, you know what? If this guy is the way people are saying he is, then we're gonna be able to have a great conversation. I know it. So go ahead, Jeremy, and give yourself a little introduction there. Tell us about your company. And
okay, yeah, my name is Jeremy. For those of you that don't know, Build a Soil is a website that started actually right here in my kitchen, and just kind of got built from the ground up. And really what set us apart as unique from day one is we didn't open the same catalog that everyone else had to distribute products from. And so while we're not a manufacturer like their product is, we wanted to reach out to other manufacturers that had the same goals with us. And we realized right away they were hard to find because they didn't have huge marketing budgets. They were aligned with major agronomy or farming outside of our industry, or there was just really hard to find them in one place where shipping was an issue. So Build a Soil was born to solve the issue of sourcing quality organic ingredients or ingredients for no-till and for that type of farming, and then putting them in one place where we could start to combine the shipping bundle and lower that burden. And since then, it's been really rewarding. We've been able to look at a ton of different. I actually looked at Soil Balance Pro from kind of from that perspective to bring it on for Build a Soil, and I didn't pay too much attention because we have a number of other products. And one of my rules is I don't want to confuse my customers, and I don't want to offer every product that's out there. I want to offer ones that we have personal experience with, and we can translate that to our customers. And so that being said, it got to the point where we started to get a lot of questions about Soil Balance Pro because they were doing a very good job getting into the marketplace. And so at that point, in my opinion, the way the universe works is that when you hear about things multiple times, kind of like a sign to start doing more research. And so that's what happened. And I will, totally admit from my end, it was like a series of events where I was definitely excited because I kind of pulled on a thread and it started to come loose. And that hadn't happened before, at least when I started researching products in the way this happened. And so I just, like I normally do things in the spur of the moment. And that's the way that all the information will be portrayed here today. I don't have a list of questions. I didn't prepare for anything. I just wanted to come have a conversation. I didn't know Peter, and it's nice to meet you, before this experience. And so none of this was personal. I feel that he totally understands that. And so coming from the perspective purely of what's good for the community, and we are by no means the watchdog of the community. There's a number of other products that were probably maybe even better in line in front of Soil Balance to deserve this type of attention. But Soil Balance in particular had very good marketing referencing university studies that, in my opinion, gave it supreme leverage to bypass some of the vetting the industry does through the seniority of who's been around a long time, who's proven their products work, the way our community normally adopts products. And so we've seen so many products come that now we're all looking for scientific evidence. Community's shifting. And so we're really hoping for that. And I feel a lot of this conversation started because they had that evidence that allowed them to jump ahead of the pack, so to speak. And now we're finding that some of that may have been misleading. Some of it may have been inaccurately portrayed, and now maybe more accurately portrayed. So I'd like to get to the bottom of all of it. We'll go through all the questions that have already been kind of posted out there and anything new that maybe users have. So at this point, I kind of like to see, I'm guessing everybody knows and is up to speed with where we're at. Does everybody have an idea?
I mean, it's, there's going to be 400 or 500 people watching and maybe some thousands over the course of the next week. So probably it's not a bad idea to go over it a little bit. Just go over the threads you pulled, mention each little thing, and then we can create the discussion back and forth.
I'll pull up my Instagram really quick because it'll help me on my end. I'm not going to go play them all. I'm not going to go through each little thing because obviously some of those things have come to light that some of them were different. The MSDS has changed, a few things like that. But I'll go through with where it started and where I was at. There has been talk about maybe losing a sale, that kind of thing. There was actually several times where this got brought up, but not in really a sales fashion. It was more in, hey, Jeremy, I'd like some information about this product. And we do that across the board because a lot of times we want people to source more regionally. And so then we had another aspect where we had a consultant that behind the scenes was asking about Soil Balance Pro in particular because they may be working in a grow on the line and they had not used this product before. So I started to do some more due diligence than I normally would. And that's where these things started to come up. And so normally I just go jump and I look at the MSDS. That is 100% accurate. A lot of times there's no information to be found. We have to do more digging, but it's one place to start. And I just went to his website or to your product's website, found the MSDS, printed it out, and went, oh my goodness, this is very different than what I've heard. And so right away, I think it got me excited in the sense of there may be more to it than I thought. And I think we can all have that feeling when our gut feels a certain way and then a fact comes in line with that. I don't want to admit that maybe I was excited about that I was right, but it's human nature. And I was thinking, my goodness, MSDS is different. And so I shared that information. And a lot of times what happens is the truth will come out right after that. We'll find that either the MSDS was accurate, was an old product, products have been removed, whatever the case was. And so you guys can see that information. That was the MSDS that was listed on the website. And later on, maybe we'll get into how that happened, but that catalyzed the conversation. Then from there, as doing due diligence, I just started dialing numbers for the university studies that were reported. Now they're being listed as university trials, and I respect that. And they also don't seem to appear in such a white paper fashion the way they're listed. But Dr. Smiley, and he was the one that I called first. And the way the universe works, sometimes when you're in that flow, those are the things that line up. And he called me back. I mean, like that. And none of the others have called me back nearly as fast. Communication has not been as easy. Was interested that his name was being used. And so then we were talking about the timeline. I posted that information. And after that, we got more into the university trials. I said I was going to call everyone. I started calling them all. And then later on, we found out something. I think I got an email back from Dr. Smiley, kind of confirming that he had not been part of the trial, and that it couldn't happen because he hadn't been there for 32 years. At that time, they started to dig and find out, okay, Eric Nelson, who was working there, so the story started to come together. Eventually, we got to the fact that I got an answer back about it may have been a student that worked for Dr. Smiley. And so then we got a letter back from Dr. Smiley saying that was not possible. He didn't have any undergraduate students working for him when he left in 1985, nor during any time after that period. And so that led us to, it was definitely solidifying that at least this one trial wasn't accurate. And so as that started to happen, we lost trust. Then we started to scrutinize things we may not have scrutinized so much, where there was terpene analysis reports. And so I clicked on it. The percentage math-wise was probably accurate, but the percentage that we talked about was they compared a very low percentage, and then they showed an increase in quality using their product with a still very low terpene number. And so after that came out, they said that was a home grower, and so I was a little bit concerned with the fact we thought maybe there was some professional testing done on the product instead of just on the home grower level. And so all in all, you can see how this story followed through on our Instagram. You can watch the videos. And I think we'll get into some more specifics. I think that's what everybody's interested in. But that's the basic story to where we're at. So now we're both together here on Hash Church. There's a lot of information regarding university trials, terpene data, MSDS. And so I think we can just hit on the high points that the customers might be interested in. Get the heart of the story. I noticed on your website, a lot of things has changed. I think had your website been the way it is now, when I first started doing my due diligence, that it would have been a dead end, and I would have recommended that they just try the product and see what their results are. What happened, and so we looked further into some of the products, the bacteria that are listed on the product, and I'd love to talk about that, see if that's changed at all. But I've heard some claims about all of the material in there colonizing cannabis, and it's pretty clear from the label that there's a number of them that just won't. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about that, but I think everyone's up to speed. So Bubbleman, if you want to kind of take it to that next step, I'm ready to ask some questions, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give my perspective. I woke up one day, I had a kind of a unique horse in the race, because it was, I had brought Peter into the community and shared my platform with him. And when I saw the post, I didn't even really see what you had said. And I didn't really, it was a quick sort of Instagram thing. And I've been on the internet for 25 plus years doing this stuff. And I've kind of learned over the years ways to go about it and ways not to go about it. And I just immediately saw people attacking Peter's character. And I was hurt by it. I was like, whoa, just a second, what's going on here? Why are people attacking Peter? He just came on Hash Church, and it's so I looked into it more, and then I was like, oh my gosh, a doctor says he wasn't part of the study. That's weird. I can't believe those guys would do that. And I just thought there must be a misunderstanding. He seems like such a good dude. Is the world really this fucked up? And then I was like, well, maybe the web guy made a mistake. I've been dealing with a web guy for 2 years, and I can't believe how borderline brain damage they are, in a sense. Sometimes the things that get put on my website are literally the opposite things of what I would have on my website. And it's kind of my own fault for being so distant from that component of my business, but I'm involved in a lot of components of my business. And so I thought, I was like, maybe they made a mistake on the, and so I called him up and I was like, hey, what's going on? And he was like, oh yeah, there's this and that. And it was a student, and there was a mistake on the website and we changed it, and everyone thinks we're hiding now. And I'm like, oh my God, this is a crazy catch-22. The internet is a dangerous place, as you well know. People love to choose sides, even when just solid information might be getting shared. I was blown away at how many people were like, loading the guns, lighting the tiki torches. I was just like, whoa, our community needs to slow down just a little bit. And because, for me, I haven't used Soil Balance. I have never received payment or sponsorship or money from them. I just invited Peter in as a guy that I felt like I related to. And funny enough, I feel like I relate to you as well, Jeremy. Most of the things you said at the start, we only want to sell products that we ourselves know work. I mean, that's what I've been doing for 20 plus years. And a lot of the things that you said in regards to how you go about doing things is very much the way I myself go about doing things. So I kind of see this as a unique opportunity for us to kind of obviously show all the information, get everything out. There's still people in chat right now going, oh, it's all fake advertising. Like, so we've got this world now with Donald Trump and media and the way it all plays out that we all owe ourselves. We have a big responsibility to one another in a sense in how we react. And I can respect that you were in the moment because I felt that. I felt that when I watched your little videos and you were like, oh my God, it just keeps going deeper. And I could see how those key things would easily make you believe those things. But I'm glad that we could come out onto the chat room and sort of open it up as a discussion, even if it turns out that it is all, you know, whatever the end result. I just think that a real discussion between the actual people is more important and less damaging than allowing for, I don't want to say social poisoning, but definitely manipulated assumption, which is not necessarily anything that anyone's, you know, we all do it. We all do manipulated assumption on a daily basis. And I don't think that it makes us evil people. I mean, here's a perfect example. Johnny B's been hooking up these people like crazy. He's been helping these guys with the Irwin clamp. He gave me one. He gave a bunch of different people one. Well, he gave one to Breeder Steve. Breeder Steve posted it the other day. He's like, oh, I love Johnny B's new product. Manipulated assumption, accidental, but Johnny B forgot to mention that this is someone else's product. And so he got the props from Breeder Steve, and the guy who actually invented the product didn't actually get and now John doesn't do that because he's evil. It was a mistake, and we all fall victim to this manipulated assumption. And from my perspective, we really need to be careful with the internet because it's so easy to lead people to something that, and you know, online as well, if you've been dealing with customers for a long time, it seems like the ones who are angry are willing to go out of their way to destroy companies and to destroy people more so than when we just are able to be like, okay, well, let's sit down and have a conversation about this. I mean, I've personally been embroiled in lawsuits for patents in this industry. I've been socially poisoned by different people who've become business partners and friends in the end, because I know, I can see how when the two groups stay apart, it can just, and it's often not even the two groups, it's the people around those two groups that love those people, that go to war for those people, and they start defending in a way that is really truly social poisoning, and it's destructive, and it's not going to help any of our of the patients or customers that are out there. So I really do appreciate both of you for coming on. I was super surprised when both of you guys were just like, yeah, of course I'll come on Hash Church and talk, dude. I have nothing to hide. Like, and so I just I guess I'd pass it over to Peter if you wanted to mention. You talked about the white paper. I'm not exactly sure what that is, but
yeah, well, dude, thanks for giving us the platform to come and talk about these things, because that's just what we've wanted. We haven't been really ever asked about any of this stuff. It's been more just saying that social paradigm shift, that the supporters are trying to find the truth, and we really appreciate you giving us the opportunity to talk about it. So yeah, one thing I will just kind of go back to, which was the MSDS. Another thing that I'm grateful to Jeremy for is that we did upload the incorrect MSDS. So one of our scientists sent it into us from another product that they were working on, and it did have some synthetic ingredients that was loaded onto our site. Jeremy found it, and we were like, holy shit, that shouldn't be on there. Why is that even on there? And, you know, I can see how that would lead to the hype, you know, hey man, it's not in the product, but it's on the MSDS. So yeah, we made a mistake. You know, we're about 7 months into the industry. We're trying to do a good job. We uploaded a ton of information pretty quickly to build the site out. Shannon and I worked on it together. That's one of the reasons she's here. And we put a lot of stuff on real quick, and we made a mistake by putting up a bad MSDS. It was sent to us in good faith. We didn't double check it. And so, yeah,
I called in that morning and actually asked about the MSDS before I posted this to give you guys a chance. And I called in and I went to the technical support team.
Okay.
And I asked them why. I said that I wanted to run a trial and that I was curious in making the trial fair. I was looking at the MSDS and I found all of these ingredients and I read them and listed them back. And I said, is there a lot of them? Is it a small amount? Should I add some of these ingredients to my trial on the other side, the fair trial? And unfortunately, your customer service department either wasn't prepared where I was ready to make up an answer very swiftly. And they told me without skipping a step that there were just trace amounts of all of those ingredients in the product just to feed the microbes as an initial microbe food. And so that to me was enough proof saying, hey, I called the company. I asked about the ingredients. The MSDS is listed there. What other opportunity could I give them, not knowing Peter maybe was the person I should have talked to? And so now I'm in a situation where immediately was changed. And I'm thinking, I just called them. They said it's in there. It's on the website. Why is this changing? And so you can see that this was not a manipulated assumption. This was black and white, and I was sharing the data, and that's all.
Yeah. No, I don't mean your manipulated assumption. I just mean like the people who love and trust you were so quick to just, I mean, I read everything you said and I was like, okay, well, let's check it out. No one else needed to check shit out. They were on the ball. They were like, they were good to go. They were just like, all right, let's burn this fucking company to the ground. I'm good to go. Let's fucking, and so that part frightened me because of course it should frighten you as well because we both own companies. And the idea of like, and I'm fallible, I'm human, so I've made all sorts of mistakes in my life. And if people start calling me out for my mistakes, like I'm actually, and I've had it happen. You want to know what happened with me? I'll tell you a funny story. I started Bubble Bags a couple of months after Mila Jensen started the Isolator Bag Company. So I wasn't the first, I was second. And so I took so much slack because of it. It was an unbelievable, starting the Bubble Bag Company second was quite something. So now check this out. I had 2 cats at the time. I had a cat named Dutch, he was a Maine Coon, and I had a cat named Tripper. So my email at the time was Dutch Tripper. Well, someone who loved Mila, because Mila owned a psychedelic shop and was Dutch and was a Tripper, figured I was stealing her like name, like I was the Dutch Tripper. He's trying to make it seem like he's Mila. Well, dude, I can promise you the last thing on the whole world I wanted people to think was that I was coming across as Mila. It's the reason I called it Bubble Hash and stayed away from Isolator. I didn't call it Bubble Hash. Keep in mind, 20 years ago when I called it Bubble Hash, there was no hype train for people to name things so they could own it. That didn't exist. That happened after the term Bubble Hash came out. And I certainly didn't name it because I wanted to own it. I wanted to distinguish myself differently from a product that already existed, that I knew I was going to be taking massive flack as the copier. Now, if you look back at the history, not only did I copy it, I destroyed it. I made it so much better and it worked out for the customers, so it ended up being a good thing. But wow, did people think I was fucking with Mila just because my email address was dutchtripper@hotmail.com. So you can see these weird little things. I wasn't trying to fuck with Mila, like honestly, and the only Cannabis Cup back then, the only event in all of the world was in Amsterdam, was in her backyard. So you can only imagine from my perspective, man, those were uncomfortable years at my booth where people would come up to me from her booth and threaten me.
Yeah.
They were doing it out of love. They loved her and they wanted to come over to me and tell me, I love Mila and I will smash your face in. One guy threatened me with a hockey stick at the Melkveg, you know, over water hash. So the fact that you guys are both sitting here right now and having a nice conversation, and the chat room also really appreciates your maturity on all these levels. Peter being able to accept what's being told to him, acknowledging that the MSDS sheet was wrong, not for, you know, a purpose of like to manipulate and lie, but being shown and being called out, immediately it gets changed. Now, one of the funny things I saw about that was they changed it, and then I saw a bunch of people going, they're trying to hide it. And I'm like, well, no, you pointed it out that it was wrong and they changed it. So it's such a crazy situation. Maybe they should have given more credit. We want to thank Jeremy for pointing this out, as Peter did when he came into the room, which to me was a big boy thing to do. That's got to be hard. You know what I mean? Thank someone for pointing out something in a way that for sure you weren't overly stoked about, but at the same time, he swallowed that and he said, you know what? We made a mistake. We were wrong. And now she's taking notes. I like that. Calling customer service. Oh, we need to make sure our customer service isn't, you know what I mean? So we're trying to better things. And the fact of the matter is, Jeremy, you're helping. And so hats off to you, dude.
Yeah, and as far as the MSDS goes, like, thank you for that, Jeremy, because and I'll take full responsibility for that one, for switching it out. And honestly, after the fact, I realized that we probably should have put a press release out to that, just for the industry as a whole to know that we made a mistake. But at that point, I didn't realize there was so much hype. I didn't realize that it was such a big deal. And so I will definitely take the fall on that one.
Well, you also didn't understand the depth of the hype that people, or how seriously people take your product. So I think this makes you aware of how seriously the marketplace takes your product and wants to see it move forward as a proper product, because nobody wants shit product. Nobody wants chemicals that were listed. You know, I had problems back when I had a cycling team. We had a supplement company put illegal supplements into riding supplements for actual cyclists, and cyclists failed, didn't go to the Olympics because of it. Okay, so this happens across the board in all types of industries, unfortunately, people, and it screws over many people. So I commend also Bubbleman. Thank you for allowing the platform so that this discussion could happen, so that the trolls and everybody else can see that it didn't come from a place of evil. It came from a place of trying to do the right thing. And out of that, you know, thankfully you have wise consumers, you know, like Build a Soil, that are actually keeping their eye out on things to make sure that they're not getting ripped off, so that you're not getting ripped off. So it all came from genuine care from all points. So thank you for being responsible adults and discussing it and bringing it to, you know, an understanding that people can see that it is what it is for what it is, and not for some, you know, fallacy that it isn't.
Yeah, thank you for that sentiment. I did want to also talk a little bit about, we worked really hard for the last week with our Dr. Bruck to try and because there was a lot of questions about the white or the university results on our website, you know, especially after what Jeremy found out with regards to talking to Dr. Smiley. So what we did was we took all the original test results that were sent to us by Dr. Bruck. We put it in a white paper, and like, honestly, I'd really like Jeremy's feedback on that. Like, what his thoughts are, if we did it, you know, if we did a good job, what he thinks about that disclosure of information to the industry.
Yeah, everyone can go look at that information. I feel, again, it was pretty misleading. It was just a regurgitation of all the information that you've already cherry picked on the website from all these reports. And then to further separate yourself from Dr. Smiley, now is said it's not Dr. Smiley, not a student of Dr. Smiley, but Dr. Smiley's laboratories, which doesn't make any sense. He hadn't been there for, you know, at least 10, 12 years at that point. And then the other 40 plus pages is basically a resume for your vice president, Mr. Bruck. And that might be relevant, and in a separate conversation, I'd be impressed with his resume. I feel that putting information you already had in what seemingly looks more like a white paper and is not, and then listing his resume so that there's more science words, looks to, again, deceive to the average person that would click on it and say, hey, they got proof. To me, there was nothing at all different there. And what I'm looking for is, anytime I look for a white paper, it is registered typically as a real study. It is at one of the websites where you can purchase the study or download it if you're a student. And it has duplicatable information. And in the bottom, it typically says, if there's a conflict of interest, it'll say competitive interest. It'll state that Dr. Bruck, president, he's on the board, he stands to profit from this information. List any other reasons why maybe there were some discrepancies, but it'll have duplicatable test results. I can't duplicate any of the stuff from the results that you've shared with us. And I also see you removed the cannabis tests from the website that were previously there. And so I got to say, I just don't think the white paper is a white paper. It is just a statement. And again, some more spin, in my opinion. So thank you. I'm definitely trying to learn from you, Jeremy, and make my company, you know, better for the industry. So what I'm hearing you say is that you feel that Dr. Bruck, who is a highly accredited professor who's been helping protect the environment from chemicals for probably longer than you and I have both been alive, it's your professional opinion that his
association with those trials is not valid. It's bogus.
Yeah, for the most part, because we were just looking for a white paper by the actual doctor mentioned. And I'd like to see that white paper. Now that I know there will be no white papers, it changes the conversation into where the data may have come from, whether they're from, handwritten journals from Dr. Bruck walking around looking at studies, were they from well-documented side-by-side trials, blessed with the ability to properly discern if these trials were done right or not. What I'm thinking is that a million trials that he made, that he did, that were real trials and that were really working with products to look for the better, he's using his gut to determine that these did work, and that even different from that, even if these trials were accurate, they're not on the product or marketing. And to me, the way microbials work is on a process called quorum, which I'm not a scientist, but if you look up, they have ways to control how the population interact and which one to grow. Adding new microbes, even one, let alone dozens, is going to change the results that we get. So perpetrating these tests as trials done on the product you're selling, to me, is completely bogus. I would mention that some of them were done in previous trials, but even using any of that data, I would just say that it was positive. And so when I see that now we're going off his memory, off of his notes, saying that all of these ones at different points in time were really beneficial, SC27 or Soil Balance Pro, because of that, to me, it doesn't translate. He's a scientist. He knows if you change something, there's a different result. And so I do feel that his motivation has been tainted, because none of the other scientists that have no motivation have taken the initiative to come out and say why or why not. Eric Nelson is hired, has probably plenty of time to talk to us, has not. And I'm thinking because he doesn't want to be in the middle. Maybe I'm wrong. But Dr. Smiley did take the time to write. And so what fact I do have to go on is that this study did not exist in his name. To question everything. And unfortunately for you, a lot of the mistakes that were made were convinced in your favor and started to add up to look as if it was manipulated. Instead of mistake here, an email for Mila, like he mentioned, some things that are far-fetched, but a number of mathematical mistakes, so to speak, in a different picture. And so on this study, all of a sudden someone coming out that has financial interest in the company without any further documentation, to me, is manipulative for the average person that is not going to ask these hard questions, especially when they may already have invested in the product and they just want any proof so that they can not be foolish. After a number of my friends have used this product, and I don't think that they're a worse person for it at all. I have an employee that's doing this side-by-side using your product. It's just that the statement doesn't seem valid to me coming from the part owner. So.
Okay, so I'll tell you this: our company is extremely fortunate to have a pedigree such as Dr. Bruck to support our team and our company. And the studies on our website were completed independently by Dr. Bruck before his tenure with our corporations. Does that make sense?
Makes sense, but there's no data that I can actually compare that. I can't see those trials because it's not been recorded properly. And the data is on a different product than you're currently selling.
Okay, well, I appreciate the advice that you're giving us. You know, there's one thing, Marcus, that I'd really like to get some clarity on. What I'm gonna do real quick, and this is a question that I have for Jeremy. I wanna share my screen really quick and show people this. I think it's important. Hold on real quick.
We also look.
This is.
We also look, and they quote Danny Danko to be their senior agronomist, which I don't believe he's an agronomist. We also look, and they quote Danny Danko to be their senior agronomist.
Can you guys see this? Okay.
He's an agronomist. We also look, and they quote Danny.
Oh, turn your the YouTube off there, Peter. It's coming through pretty loud.
Okay. This is something that I have a question on. Hold on. Can you hear that? Okay. Or
yeah. I could hear. Also look, and they quote Danny Danko to be their senior agronomist.
It's someone's got their YouTube on as well as the Google chat. So you have to mute the YouTube so we don't keep hearing the reverberation.
I think that was the Instagram, right? And that was
could have been. There you go. There you go.
That was what he was trying to point out, and that I misleadingly said that it was their senior agronomist. And since then, I've let go of that statement. Just quoting that he's a senior agronomist has been more in question.
Oh, okay.
But I believe that's what they're referencing.
All right. Okay. Well, it's okay. Perfect. Welcome, Forrest. We're just in the middle of it here with Build a Soil and Soil Balance Pro.
Hold on real quick, because I don't think that this got to be thoroughly looked at. So because of the reverberation of the text, but essentially this is just how I feel. You know, what he just said misleading about Dr. Bruck. It's the same rhetoric that kind of defines everything right here. So on Instagram, what ended up happening, and I can play this, you guys can go to his Instagram channel, and essentially what happened was he cut off the bottom of the actual testimonial that's on our website. So this testimonial has been there for 7 months. And on the bottom, it says, "High Times, we never claimed that he was our senior agronomist, but what Jeremy did was he cut off the High Times," and that's what I wanted to play for you guys. I took a shot of the video. He cut off the High Times, and he just focused on the top part. So he said,
I can talk to that if you'd like.
He said, we also look here, and they quote Danny Danko to be their senior agronomist. Now, how I know this is true is the bottom of this video has the little red thing, which means we didn't change it like he's insinuating us. So this right here, Marcus, it pretty much lets me know that he's purposefully trying to slander us. This right here is not playing nice. It's not being an adult. This is purposefully doing something that you guys can all go see what he did and what he said to purposefully slander us. And every single comment other than our MSDS has been in this fashion. And he admitted it himself. He got heated, you know, and I get that. I understand to get heated.
Danny Danko, this is a silly statement. It has nothing to do with your product. I didn't cut it off. Instagram has square recording. It cut it off the bottom. No manipulation was done, because to me, just quoting him as a senior agronomist to anybody was the funny part, because you're in our industry, man. You have to know who these people are. Saw that. That's what it was coming from. And just to let you know, it was misleading enough that even with the High Times listing there, everybody knows he's with High Times. I thought you were actually attributing him to be on the board as part of your senior agronomist, because any agronomist, whether you work for High Times or not, you could send information out and you could work with that agronomist. And so whether it was High Times or not, just listed as an agronomist. And so again, it was a mistake. I've given you many mistakes and said that's fine. You guys were probably just including that one.
I just want to break in for 1 second and say, listen, really, what you guys need to do is hash this out in private. In public, this is no good, because it's just tit for tat. And what we should have back on the show is when you two guys have reached a conclusion and you're in agreement.
So Sam, there's a friend of mine out there whose name is Pedro, and I hope that this video answers his question the other day, because he literally called me up on the show and he said, "Hey man, why did you say that this is your agronomist? Why would you lie like that?" And I felt bad, because he was given information by this corporation, Build a Soil, that was.
He said right on there that he thought through your advertising that he was your agronomist.
It does both of you a disservice. It does the industry a disservice. Come on, let's find agreement before we. This is not good. Do you really think so, Marcus?
Well, I like the idea of, listen, what was really not good, Sam, what was really not good was having no conversation and letting it grow with social media.
I agree with you, Marcus, but we're not coming to a conclusion. We're just like airing our dirty laundry.
Well, because that was what needs to happen so that all the things can be out. And then here's the thing. I give my props up to both of these guys for putting it out there, because here's the thing. Everything has changed with social media. The way we do business, the way we learn, the way we connect with one another, it's all changing, and it's happening in real time. It's changing like nobody knows what's happening tomorrow because it changes so fast. So for me, yeah, it's a little bit, I hear the tit for tat and that people not wanting to like kind of, you know, like Jeremy has his perspective and so does Peter. My only hope was really that we could be able to have a conversation that would move things forward for both companies to have, because right now what's happened is what happens, and humans are so limited in the way they react and think in life. It's just, it creates sides. And I, after spending 20 years, Sam, 20 fucking years on the other side of the water hash thing, you know, having wars and little, you know, social poisonings, and it just doesn't stop. And sometimes when you can like uncover it and expose it and open it up and look right into the nastiness, you can clean it out and you can get it working again. I believe both of these guys are a huge benefit to the community. How I know is because in the chat, there are people defending them to the death. And that's the part that scares me when we don't have the conversation. Fuck Jeremy from Build a Soil. Fuck Peter from Soil Balance. I will go to... It's like, no, that's not what you need to do. What Jeremy's trying to do is uncover information. What Peter's trying to do is answer questions. Nobody's trying to trick you or take your money. And these are both two companies that are trying to share information in a way that right now they've got a little bump in the road. You know, you got to admit, from Jeremy's perspective, especially, I've been there. I have absolutely done the internet investigation myself, and it's when you get that thread and you pull on it, whether it's a mistake on an MSDS sheet, whether it's an elderly doctor who can't remember a thing that he did because one of his students did it under his name, blah, 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 blah. At least we can have a conversation about it and uncover it and expose it, because right now what you have is half informations being assumed by people, and I can promise you what is happening is hurting both of these companies. So I think that it would be wonderful, and if it's hurting both of these companies, then it's not really that great for, say, the end result of customers getting products that they are happy to be using. And that's really what it's supposed to be all about, that we're happy with the end result of a product that we're using. So that's, I get where you're coming from too, Sam.
Yeah,
I could see, Peter, how you would think that I'm cutting off the high times. It was in the moment. I had no reason to manipulate that whatsoever, and I could definitely see how, from your perspective, I had no.
Dude, it's right. That. It's Jeremy. That one's as strong. That one's as strong as the MSDS sheet being wrong and then getting changed, and people assuming they're hiding it. Well, it's just as strong as seeing a clip, and that you can see how when we react and these experiences happen, that it doesn't necessarily have to be a sort of evil connotation for things to play out in a way that people are like, oh, look at what happened. Look, you see, he's totally full of shit. It's like, well,
if you look for the worst, you'll often find it.
And that's another way of saying it as well. So what I'm trying to do today is I'm trying to pull the best out of Build a Soil and the best out of Soil Balance. Here's the bottom line from Soil Balance. I have not yet used the product, so I don't have a personal opinion on it. However, some of my friends that grow some of the best pot that I know of, this 30% yielder, 30% yield off of Where's My Bike. These guys have the Soil Balance going right now, and they're both just, they told me the other day, they're like, dude, I want to buy a couple kilos of it. It's unbelievable shit. So these guys are not the kind of guys to be tricked, to be manipulated, or to have something of that level convince them that it's working when it's really not. I can tell you that is an impossibility with these guys here. So I can give props through my grower friends that I have friends that are using it and are growing with it, and it's working. So, you know, that's why I wanted to have the conversation to sort of, you know, get all this out in the open. And I totally hear where Sam's coming from. And I'm just, I wish we could do this on so many levels of business. I wish we could.
I would like this to be resolved, and I think it would be absolutely a good thing for it to be resolved. And the industry can use products like these if they're safe and effective, which I believe they probably are. But Yeah, I mean, I don't think we're going to really resolve it. I think they need to resolve it, and then they can come back on the show and announce how they did resolve it.
I like that idea too. Like I said, it was just to start a conversation, get it out in the open, get these guys communicating, and get more exposure to both of them in their journey. That's what, for me, listen, Hash Church, I quit Hash Church fucking 3 weeks ago. I stopped doing this. I was like, I'm done. I can't put the energy into it anymore.
Rob Clark came on the show and said goodbye, remember?
Vaguely remember that. It wasn't that memorable, but I will say that. Oh, gotta mute Sam there real quick. So listen, so Sam came up to me, or no, sorry, it was Tony 3 weeks ago. He said, oh, we got to do one more episode. I was like, all right, we'll do one more episode. Then Sam hit me up and said, hey, come on, if I come up with a good conversation, a dialogue, like maybe bring a friend in who makes CO2, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, listen, if you want to put some energy into it, Sam, I will absolutely do another episode. Then the Build a Soil balance thing happened. And I thought, could we offer this platform to these two gentlemen to explain their positions and to, at the same time, to also to give exposure to more people so they can hear more of what's going on. Because I can tell you right now, this conversation is just sided, and there's people on Build a Soil side and there's people on Soil Balance side. So what I was trying to do was just create more of a people on both sides, get rid of that fence so there's no grass is greener on the other side. If there's things to be exposed, they will be exposed. And that's the bottom line.
You're just trying to open dialogue. You see a point and you're just trying to be a good mediator. You see a point where there could be discussion and you're just trying to promote the discussion. However, I think that Sam is correct. I think this is a little more complicated. And, I'm always a fan of not airing your dirty laundry if not needed. I think you both presented your points, but I think you need to work it behind the scenes. Otherwise, this is just going to be a back and forth all day, and I don't have all day for this. And I respect you both for what you do, because I know growers who use both your products. So I've also heard nothing but, positive things about both your products. So I have to second Sam. I would take it offline, get your shit together, and then come back and tell us how you've worked it out. Because, as I've seen in chat, you've definitely have people who are entrenched either way, and both are calling you guys out either way because how you've presented yourselves, whether you wanted to or not. That's just how people are. So at this point, I would, say let's wrap this up to a bit, because I just don't see an immediate solution, out of respect to you both, because I respect what you're both trying to do, and I respect the end products that your products have produced time and time again. So work it out, figure it out, shake those trees, make it important, but solve it, quell shit. We don't need this stuff festering in the community, because, it's not about jockeying for position. You have positions and products that are out there. And if, depending on how you respond to this, could affect how your business goes. Not from me. I don't buy your products personally because I don't grow personally right now. However, apparently from looking at, and if you've been watching chat, there's a lot of people who do and are. So I love and respect you both for what you have and what you've accomplished. So work it out, and then let's take it to the next step.
Yeah, and I would also offer, if, I don't know, maybe I'm just being insane, but if you guys do need a moderator in any way, shape, or form, I'm equally on both of your sides. I've had Peter on more, but that doesn't mean that I'm on Peter's side more than Jeremy's. I really want to be a neutral sort of Switzerland for you guys if I can. And if it's not important, then by all means, don't worry about it. I can. I still have lots to do in life.
We need a big fat cleansing bong rip.
I haven't had a bong rip this whole thing, and you know what? Welcome to Indra. Welcome to Forrest. Welcome to Sam. Sam's actually in his lab today, and he's going to run us through. I think he's going to run us through a BHO run while Indra tells him everything he's doing is wrong. So I'm looking forward to that. Sam is as well. He is looking. Sam is such a fucking awesome guy. I told him, I said, look, I'm inviting Indra in today, and he's going to fucking tell you that you're doing everything wrong. And you know what he says to me? He says, I look forward to it. That's a fucking guy who wants to learn, who has put his own ego on the side of the chair. And he's just like, great, tell me what I'm doing wrong. That's worth $1 million to me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, if you've got ways for us to improve, we're all ears here. We're trying new things constantly so that we can make better products and have a better workflow. So
nice. Well, right off the bat, I love your buddy's shirt.
He loves your shirt, Corbin.
Dude, are you kidding me?
That's pretty cool. Hey, I was wondering if I could send that link to Corbin too, so he could get on a microphone here. We're in kind of like a loud area with a lot of air.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You could, but we have 10 people in the chat room right now.
All right. Tight quarters. Well, send it to him, and then if somebody drops out, he'll be able to get in there. This is my boss, Corbin here. Corbin, you want to wave to the camera and say, hey, this is Dow.
What's going on, Corbin? Getting the dry ice in there?
Yeah, so get a little closer here. One of the first things we're doing to get it started with our run is we have a condensing coil. Let's flip this around so you can see. So we have a pump that we use to recover the butane out of our collection pot. We have a coil here that's immersed in dry ice and alcohol. So we just load some ice in there, and then it exits at the bottom. And this is one big improvement we made, is that it will drain via gravity into our solvent tank. So this is a closed loop solvent extractor we're using. It's a Precision PX1. We've made a few modifications to it. For the most part, Precision's got a pretty decent setup for an easy, efficient workflow here. So we've got a dewaxing column. You can see it's pretty cold. We've got some chillers in the next room. This is one of the modifications we've made recently. We actually eliminated the material column from this.
I take it that pan is there just to catch the condensation from the ice?
Exactly, Etienne. Yeah, the cold columns here drip a little bit, and it just collects water, and instead of making a mess on our floor, it just keeps it clear.
Fuck.
So yeah, we're running. Let's check our solvent temp here before we get going too, and I'll kick on the vacuum pump so we can pull a vacuum.
You may want to speak into your mic a little more, Sam. You're a little distant.
Thanks for the heads up. Is that any better?
Yes.
All right. So this is our solvent chiller. So you can see here our solvent temperature in that tank is about -24 degrees Fahrenheit. And we've also got the heater here, and this keeps warm water in the jacket of the collection pot, which is how we boil off the gas to recover it and get it ready to pour out in the machine. And this here is the rest of our laboratory. And Corbin, do you want to actually just throw this headset on and tell them a little bit about the oils here and what we're going to be doing beforehand? I'll be your cameraman.
Looks like some sauces.
We seem to have lost your audio, Sam.
Oh, can you hear me?
There you go.
Oh, he wasn't talking yet. There we go.
Okay.
Sorry.
You're live, so you need to keep the conversation rolling.
All right, cool. So I just wanted to let you guys check out some of our finished product that we got here, stuff that's out for laboratory testing, things like that. One strain we've done a lot with lately, Super Silver Haze. I'm sure everyone has had this. This is all from fresh frozen material. You can see.
And this is all BHO extractions?
Correct. Yeah, it's all hydrocarbon extracts. We do butane, propane blends. Kind of varies depending on what we're running. But yeah, something like this. Like I said, we're still waiting on the residual solvents and terpene tests and all that stuff. But in our previous batches of this strain, we've been hitting in the high teens. The last one was 18% terpenes for homogenized mix. So we have the packagers gram this up. We have them stir it up and get all the terpenes kind of spread back throughout it.
People were asking why was it so watery. So it's the terpenes that are suspended on
Correct.
The top.
Yep. So yeah, the terpenes will naturally separate and kind of rise to the top. So lighter compound. That's why I said when the packagers are getting into it, we have them kind of emulsify that stuff so that every gram gets a little bit of that terpene layer in it.
I have a question for you. What percentage of the terpenes do you think you're actually capturing, and what percentage are being lost to the process?
I'm not exactly sure. I've never done any terpene testing prior to any of our purging processes or anything like that, but that would definitely be an interesting thing.
When you say fresh frozen, does that mean the material is actually like a fresh plant that's been frozen and it still has water frozen in with it?
Yep, correct.
And you can BHO it with water trapped in it like that?
Yeah, as long as the temperatures remain cold, all that water freezes. And I've never once finished a run and looked in the collection pot to see any moisture or water or anything like that.
Oh, okay.
We also have a molecular sieve on the
nothing
extractor
about
that will dry
BHO, so I was just asking a question as a pretty ignorant guy.
Oh yeah, no problem.
Yeah, Sam is so ignorant.
So over here we've got kind of a higher cannabinoid portion of a run. These are actually from the same exact extraction, just one has been separated, one has had all the native terpenes left in it. This is going to be a much higher testing in THCA, so this is going to be your potent knockout kind of dab. This is going to be for those consumers that just want flavor. In here we've got some stuff that was ran yesterday, so this is kind of earlier in the process. I'm not sure if it's really picking up on the camera, but it's just starting to...
Looks purple. Oh yes, it's time for a bong rip.
This is the Maui Wowie.
And so you're going to purge that now?
Correct, yeah. So this is just starting the purging stages, so it's real early on. Like I said, this was just extracted yesterday. So this is kind of prior to any crystallization or separating.
And the jars, you said that they were 18% terpenes. And
correct.
What percent THC or THCA?
Typically for our higher terpene testing stuff, we're seeing in the high 50 to mid 70% range. We've got a couple
because the reason I asked it was because if your cannabis is, say, 20% THC, and your product there is 70, it's 3.5 times stronger. So the terpenes, it doesn't seem like you lost very many, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I mean, I truly believe we're capturing everything that we can, without sacrificing quality and picking up things that we don't want.
Yeah, those are pretty high numbers, 18%.
Yeah.
How's your parts per million in residuals on your test?
Yeah, so most of them, let's see if I can find a tester of softer ones. Typically, we're under 100 ppms. A lot of times, none detected. So, like, here's a test result for our Dutch Treat live resin. This one was 17% terpenes, 59% THC total. This laboratory only tests down to 25 ppm, so there was none detected. See, like mycotoxin screenings, all kind of clean and everything too. So that was a good one. This is one of our more recent ones. This is our highest testing terpene total so far at 21.49. Once again, no detected solvents. So typically the higher terpene extracts, because that terpene portion of it is so water-like, it's actually very easy to remove all those residual solvents. There's a lot of misconceptions about that.
Are you producing this material yourselves, or are you purchasing?
Sorry, say it again.
This material that you're running, is this stuff that you have grown from the beginning, or is this stuff that
some of it
purchased?
is. We have a pretty small grow here, so for the demand of our concentrates, we do purchase a lot of material. So we buy a lot of stuff from large greenhouse grows and things like that.
Are you guys? How is the pesticides, mycobutanol, systemic sort of pesticide issues other people are having? Are you guys running into that at all post?
No, I mean, we're pretty careful with the farmers that we work with and have got quite a bit of trust instilled in them. And we've done random pesticide tests on starting material and things like that just to check. And we've also, the farm that we work with primarily, we've encouraged that they have actually the Liquor Control Board and the Department of Agriculture come out and do voluntary pesticide testings, and in our minds, the fact that they're willing to do that kind of stuff, like I said, we put a lot of trust in them.
Are you testing the final product though, as far as post concentration?
Not typically, no. Every once in a while, we'll do a random one, but it's not a normal.
Yeah, I would definitely recommend it for certain farms, just
absolutely.
As you check them, because we have seen a problem where a lot of flowers test clean until we concentrate it, and all of a sudden things start popping up.
Yeah, we have had the concentrate,
especially
well.
if the farm is getting their clones from other sources that they think are clean.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's definitely a big concern.
Nope, can't hear you there.
Oh. Barely hearing whatever stuff. Stop talking, you can switch it back to me and go next door.
And when your product is finished like that and it's 18 or 21% terpenes, are most of the monoterpenes still intact? Or is it close to the original profile of the plant? No, we can't hear you.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes, now I hear you.
Oh,
Yep.
Cool. Sorry about that. Yeah, as far as we can tell, we still have a decent amount of monoterpenes and regular still intact. Let's see if I've got some of the profiles.
Yeah,
here.
do your results show?
Did you see that recently published article about CO2 extractions and how they have a tendency to lose all the monos?
You know, I haven't had a chance to look through it, but Sam just sent it to me yesterday, so it's on my list of things to sit down and read. Sounds pretty interesting. I definitely always had a feeling that there was something about CO2 extraction, flavor, and terpene-wise that was going on. That's obviously a lot different than what we're doing with
It wasn't saying that you lose all the monos. It was saying that there was chemistry going on. Some were
Right,
changing.
they're kind of changing, right? Yeah.
Well, a combination of loss and change. You're correct.
Right. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I think that's about all I got to show you here as far as finished product and things of that nature. Probably jump into the other room and switch the mic over. Yep.
Very nice.
I have one question. Do you think there's a limit to the size of beakers that you can create these crystals of THCA in? In other words, if you had a 10,000 liter beaker, would it still work?
We certainly don't have the oven space to try anything that large, but from everything we've tried, the smaller surface area does seem to help. But when we're doing these really large runs, it just becomes many jars that would have to get filled up.
John, they're using ovens, John. I know what Indra has to say about using vac ovens.
Well, the thing is, they're not taking into account that they're leaving gas.
We lost you again.
We can't hear you, Indra. Your microphone now is the opposite of what it was last week, and we can barely hear you.
Yeah, now it sounds like it's in your ass instead of your mouth. Sorry, I just had to make everyone laugh. I'm glad you're sticking around too, Jeremy, because I want us to talk a little bit more just about your company and about what's going on. Same with you, Peter. We can still have conversations without getting into the actual back and forth that Sam and Etienne have no time for.
No, we have time for the resolution that when it will be announced.
Yes, the resolution will be announced. Hey, shout out to Pharmacy for the nice hat. Today is day one.
Well, I think the take-home message from today is that growing organically is a dirty process, and everybody should be growing hydroponically.
Yeah, that's basically. You're starting to take on Sam's humor.
I like dirt.
Not if you want terpenes.
Yeah, terpenes. True story. Try to deny that.
Yeah, well, so we're going to see some science to back that up, I guess.
Yeah, well, I know that Tony, who is doing a lot of terpene extraction, not many people are actually extracting terpenes the way Tony is. So he has a very unique perspective. I wish he was here today because he definitely sees a very high percentage coming out of like greenhouse bud. Terpenes higher, much higher than indoor.
Yeah, well, we were pretty much the first to be doing a quantified terpene method, so I don't know. I think I know a little bit about terps.
For sure. I'm just saying Tony processes like hundreds, thousands of pounds of cannabis to produce terpenes. He's produced more terpenes than most people will ever see in their life. That's all I'm saying.
In other words, what you're saying is that he knows what produces and what don't.
Yeah, that's exactly all I'm saying. He's not like Mr. Terpene science guy, but he's definitely like, out of all the people I talk to, because I'll often be like, oh, how many thousands of pounds have you run for terpenes? And they'll be like, what? I'll be like, I thought so.
Okay. My 2 cents about your crystal phenomenon or your THCA. It's not a phenomenon. To start with, you guys are leaving a certain amount of gas in your extract. And, the gas is doing, as the gas
it's actually not particularly accurate.
As the gas matriculates out of the solution while you're letting it sit there, the lighter stuff goes to the top and the heavier stuff falls to the bottom.
That part I would agree with.
The heavier stuff, I'm not asking for agreement. I'm explaining something to you. The heavier stuff is the THCA crystals falling out on the bottom, and the lighter stuff is the higher fractions and the terpenes that are going out near the top. And it's not a phenomenon because we've got a 120-pound chamber. We extract 25 kilos at a whack, and we see it happen in the chamber. But that's because our system doesn't work like yours. We freeze the top chamber as we're putting it in by the way we put the gas in. We put it through special kind of nozzle that freezes everything. And that freezes all the plant lipids and wax right in the top chamber, and we just shower down the good stuff. And in the bottom, we have very pure material. And there's a lot of pictures on Instagram. You can see what the material comes out the way we do it. But we don't have these extra columns and stuff because we don't need them, because our system thermodynamically balanced and it's thermodynamically levered from one part of the extraction to the next. Also, at the bottom of ours, we have 0 parts per million. We don't do pour outs. We don't advocate pour outs. We don't teach it. We don't think it's a safe process. And our system recovers all of the gas and puts all of the gas back in the storage tank. And we don't use vacuum ovens. We don't need a vacuum oven. Our bottom chamber is using the heat from the compressed gas in a jacket around it to help, and so it purges right into the equipment. So all these other things that you guys have got going there, the vacuum oven and all that stuff, those are all things that were done like a doctor sometimes treats things from the symptoms rather than what's really wrong. And that's how those systems came about. That system that you're running there came about that way. Our system is just received the state of California Zone 2 certification. So we're not a Class 1 Zone 1 system. We're a Class 1 Zone 2. Don't need a bomb-proof room to run ours in. And that says a lot for the safety of it. And that's because of the way we look at it and how we handle everything. The gas comes in the room, goes into the chamber, goes into the bottom chamber, is recovered back out, and very quickly sent right back to a filter system to the storage tank. And so the California Fire Department liked that so well that they gave us Class 2.
Sounds like a fantastic system, Indra, and I've been following you closely since your first appearance on House Church back on episode 96 and 98. And I'm not sure if you recall, but I actually wrote you inquiring about your system to see if I could purchase one for a previous company I was working with. So
where'd you write
I'm
to?
a big fan of John. I think it was John Davis at yahoo.com.
No, you missed it.
We had a brief dialogue back and forth, but you didn't have any systems that were ready for I-502 compliance in Washington State. So we're running with what the law permits us to run with, and a system that works well for us. I can't wait to see your system up and running and to see how it works and what it puts out. But
we're all waiting to see Indra's system.
Our system sits on a sled. It's got everything there. We've got a recovery system that we imported from Germany that under ideal conditions can recover 25 gallons a minute. And we use the heat from this compression to help purge the gas back out of the system. But, you know, We do 120-pound loads every hour. And so you put the 120 pounds in, an hour later, you got the 15 or 20 kilos of oil, whatever it is you were looking for. And the bottom chamber, the catch chamber, is an 85-gallon chamber. So you can actually dump another load in the top and extract a second and a third and a fourth one. You can carry on all day long in an 8-hour shift. A guy can extract 1,000 pounds without very much difficulty at all. And if he's got 2 or 3 guys, one guy preparing it by cryo grinding, you can bump that up to nearly double. So the system is a real beauty. It sits on a sled. It weighs 2,000 pounds. The top chamber is a 30-inch manway. The bottom door is a 24-inch manway. So you can actually crawl in to these things. They're made at Holloway Steel, which is one of the finest stainless steel foundries in the world. And from Holloway, they get shipped directly to Universal Air Gas, who mounts the German recovery pump system and the vacuum system and the control system and the computer all together on it, tests it, gases it up, bubble wraps it, and then ships it to you ready to go. So it's a really solid system. Air Gas wouldn't be involved if it wasn't. These guys are they're on oil platforms all over the world. They designed our recovery system for us, and really it's the hottest thing since sunburn. I am not arrogant. I'm just talking about the truth, you guys. The people out there who think I'm arrogant when I say these things are the same people that think open blasting is good, or Elvis is still alive, or Obama was born in Kenya. I mean,
I don't think so. I don't think so, Indra. I think that people are just sick and tired of like waiting for the units and nobody's seen the results and the lab results or anything. So, you know, if you can't,
who's nobody? Who's nobody?
I'll say me. I'm getting tired of it because it's like I've been waiting for a long time to see all this stuff, and it's been talk, and you know, when are the systems coming out?
Here's the deal, Mr. Drug Guy. Go on the site, make an order, make a deposit, and then you know.
No, simple. But the problem is, Indra, is that I know people in the industry that have done that, and they're still waiting for their machine. So I'm not going to like.
They know exactly what the deal was on how long the wait was, and it's all completely above board. Everything is going along swimmingly. Holloway's got the stuff nearly done. It'll go to Air Gas, and then what will you do? What part of it will you shoot your mouth off about then?
No, I want to see a unit working, and I want to see the lab results before I put any money down, dude. That's not too much to ask.
I'm trying to sell you one, dude.
Hey, everybody! I appreciate your candor, Chimera. I appreciate your honesty, John.
Tonight is a special fight church.
This is court church. Someone was calling it hash court.
No, well, let's just call it integrity church. I mean, shit. When it's like, what is this, an ad? Like everybody getting up here and just pumping their stuff? Or are we gonna have some results?
Well, I will say this, like I've said it before. When I asked Indra to see results, I said I pulled a U. I was kind of like the doubting Thomas who wanted to touch the incorporeal body of Christ. I didn't believe it. And so what I did was I sent him material and I said, if you can just make the best resin, then you should have no fucking problem whatsoever. And I was aggressive about it. Defatting this hemp seed.
Yeah, I know. I've heard the story.
Well, dude, listen, it's maybe a story, but I'm telling you, you know how involved I am in the hemp industry.
Yeah, but dude, I mean, I've heard it. I've been there, seen that, and we're past that stage now. And it's like, if these magical units exist, then why can't I see one? Why can't I go run some material through it and get a lab result?
Yeah,
that's all I'm saying. That's not too much to ask.
Right.
Maybe we can do a live work session with Indra's machine. I'd love to see that thing up and running. So
right, buy one. So I'll just buy one to take your word for it.
Until it's available. I mean, we're running the system that we have here, and we'd like to show you what it takes to run ours.
Right.
Hearing about how much better Indra's is.
Look, we were tested in the flavor and fragrance industry for 14 years by all the real labs, not marijuana labs. We were tested because we made stuff for Roberta, for Firmenich. We extracted flavors and fragrances for 14 years. And so the fact that we're just slipping over into the cannabis industry could be a heads up and everybody thinking, wow, here comes expertise from around the world from someone that's been extracting everything, not just cannabis.
Yeah, but the problem is, man, is that when you get up and you start telling, when it's the guy that's selling the machine that's telling everybody that they're the world expert with no data to back it up, then that's a real problem. So, and there's nothing that you can say that's going to change my mind on that. I don't care if you're selling bacteria or you're selling machines, you're selling.
I thought Mark bought one of the machines and is using it in Oakland.
Well, is he? Is it delivered yet? I mean, can I go down and see it run and get a lab result and send it to the lab?
You definitely cannot go down and see it run.
Well, okay. Well, then I ain't putting any money down. I mean, it's as easy as that.
Good. I'm not.
A lot of people like that are.
Is that
buy shoes are just looking
buy
for
a
some video
PSI or one of those?
Well, obviously, when people buy these machines, though, they have to see them tested. No one's buying this sight unseen, are they, Indra?
No, we make a test run for everybody. Everybody approves the test run, loves it.
All right.
We carry on from there.
So who do we know in our community that has had a test run and seen this done?
Mark told me he had one delivered.
Mark Scaldone? I thought you were joking. I thought you were saying me.
No, Sheldon says that one was delivered at some point, and last I heard it was being installed.
Nice.
But again, like...
Yeah.
I've been looking forward to
how
it.
his machine's way better and his process is way better. And then trying to
I just find it funny that there's always, Todd was in the same boat. He was the doubting Thomas. I'm like, well, then get him to go see him. You're in California. Go fucking see him and get an extract done. Like, I sent him material when he lived in Kansas, and it was like less than a week later, I got this shit back. I had it tested in multiple labs. I mean, I had it done. Have you contacted him at all, Chimera, in regards to this, or did you just?
I talked to him at the Emerald Cup.
I don't know. So I'm being just honest, because I'm sure, like, now you've offended him, so he's going to be like, you can't come here. But I'm sure it would be as simple as,
Well, you know what, dude? If I'm offending someone by asking questions about their product and their process, then that's ridiculous. You know what I mean? Like, you can go in.
What's ridiculous is your attitude, dude. That's what's ridiculous.
Yeah. It's just the vibes. It's not the question at all. And don't get me wrong. I also don't have a horse in this race. I'm just, once again, trying to be Switzerland, trying to be the moderator, trying to keep everyone happy because I like you both.
Yeah,
but
Ryan, you need to have really good vibes like me.
Yeah, man. Well,
yeah. No, you don't have to have any vibes. I'm just saying it wasn't asking the question. It was this. Well, what are you doing? That was the vibe. So it's like he was like the automatic human response to that vibe, Indra or not, is and back and forth it goes. Like I thought that Soil Balance and Build-A-Soil was doing much better in their disagreements. But hey, I'm not here to judge. I appreciate you. When you said it, I laughed. And then when Indra said what he said, I laughed then too. And then once again, I see all the sheep in the chat room picking sides right away. Yeah, Indra's fake. Yeah. Oh, Chimera doesn't know what he's talking. Like, I just think it's all hilarious. This is like a human experiment. Please continue to all do what you're doing. And nobody's doing it right. Nobody's doing it wrong.
I have some mental floss I need to pop this Chimera.
In between the third week of January and the second week of February, 5 will be delivered. And those 5, all those people took samples, looked into it, even had lawyers, did due diligence, looked at the patent.
I say rock and roll.
And they bought into it, and that's as simple as that. Those are sold. And now I'm getting ready to start on manufacturing cycle number 2, and I'm going to make pen in a second manufacturing cycle. Plus, we now have a build budget sheet coming for the 5-liter model, which is 5 gallons up and 10 gallons lower. And yeah, it's going to be affordable, and it's going to be the people's extractor for people who want a small amount. You can extract.
Well, you know what we'll do? We'll put it on the bin like we did with Build-A-Soil and Soil Balance. And what you can do is just come back with the solution. When it's the unit and it's available and you're sitting there and you've invited Sam over and you guys are going to do a batch, then that's the solution. Because it's, you know, in Chimera's defense, it's been a lot of talking about the unit, some photos of it, but not even like a video or something to. People definitely are way past due in seeing this process work. And wouldn't you love to
make a sound, Mark? It sits there and runs absolutely quiet. It doesn't.
Oh, the process, filling it, emptying it, opening the door, like, you know, all those little things. Like, I mean, it's definitely a big part of marketing a product. Like,
well, as soon as they're finished at the install site where we're putting the one in with the ventilation, and which they're not done with yet, we will do the first run, and Johnny will take a video of that while it's happening.
Forget Johnny. You should invite like Vice or something, bro, to come down there with Reds and actually fucking create a production for you, because it's true. It's like, look, even Sam's here showing the process. I mean, it might not be the one you agree with, but there he is showing it. There they are doing it. You know, that's
what we're going to do. The results. We're going to do the first one.
Hey, welcome, Dragonfly Medicine, by the way. How's it going, guys?
Very good, very good.
Going great. Thanks for having us this morning. We're super honored.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally spaced on you guys last week, and I remember being like, damn, like, I forgot to invite them. Like, I'm the worst, first of all. I don't have a list, okay? Although that's not really true. That's not really true, because just yesterday I found this, which was, I think this was like the Hash Church, like, the big episode, the 3-year episode. But every day, morning, Sunday, when I do it, it's just kind of by my memory, and I go through. Facebook's the hardest, because sometimes I'll forget Sheldon, sometimes I'll forget Skunkman Sam.
And we're not even on Facebook.
Yeah, well, you guys are of the unique group, along with Wade and Alec from SC Labs, and Subcool, and a few others that are via email. So I have to do two separate invitations.
We've got so much going on right now here at the farm. We just felt like, oh, it's great to be able to take a break with you guys for a few hours this morning.
But we love you. We love
awesome.
you.
It's great.
Busy season, I'm sure, for you guys right now.
Oh, yeah. Full on. As soon as the rains came, it's when things need to start kicking up. So we're running around the clock right now with a small crew and feeling very blessed. What amazing summer.
Unbelievable. Right till the end of October.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, we have flavor still in the greenhouse right now with like snow right on the top of the mountains right there. It's fabulous.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I saw some frozen things down at Benson Elvis's place in Washington and some other places that just like fields just frozen on the stalk. I was like,
even Southern Oregon and Northern California got some pretty good frosts on there. So it's okay. It brings the frost.
Fires. So
stop the fire. Good.
Well, I'm glad to have you guys here sharing the good vibes. We've had an interesting Hash Church.
Hey,
that's a really loud sound, Sam. So you got to keep that mic muted unless you want to say something. Oh, he kept it muted. There we go. I've been like, sometimes I get into these funny little like mute wars. Go ahead, Sam.
I'm trying to jump in, but there's a lot of discussion happening. We just wanted to get things going here and get this run underway. So we pulled a vacuum on everything, and we're about to send some solvent and get her started.
How much does that chamber fit?
So the solvent tank here can hold about 20 pounds of solvent. The material column, as you saw, we had these socks. And so a good analogy here is kind of like when you're making bubble hash using a work bag.
Yeah.
We're using these column socks so that we can put our material inside. And for fresh frozen, which is what we're doing today, we can fit about 5 to 6 pounds. Now, most of that weight is water, which is frozen as ice. And then during the extraction process, we do our best to keep everything as cold as possible so that it never warms up and we can maintain the quality.
Cannabis is so incredible. Like, I'm just like a kind of like sift guy, water hash guy, but it's quite something that you can have these insane machines built and be using CO2 and all different hydrocarbons. And you can't forget Horatio's old method of using the actual terpene D-limonene. It's just unbelievable that it produces its own hydrocarbons to do its own extraction. Like, how kind of insane is that? That's like Inception.
Yeah, that's something I definitely wanted to bring up. Is Indra was telling me that we were leaving a large amount of solvent behind because we found that the terpenes in cannabis are a more effective solvent to promote crystallization. So we really recover all the solvent we can out of the run and just let the terpenes do their work. And it's more about the extraction process and the gases that are used to get a thorough extraction of those terpenes that allow us to create the sauces.
Interesting.
Yeah, the chemistry of the plant does a lot for us as long as we let it do its work.
Interesting. Well, I don't think I'll be picking up the method tomorrow by any means. I'm just such a fan of like the quick and easy, just like, you know, produce that nice little oil right at home with just a press.
I'm most certainly also a fan of bubble hash and dry sift. And
I know you are.
And holy shit, the dry sift that you had sifted there that you gave me a dab of was a pretty KO punch. This is just a different kind of a product. It's another option out there.
Yep. Like I said, I sure wouldn't fight against any particular. Oh, let me mute your mic again because it's really bad sound going inside the column there as they fill it up. I was going to say I'm not really one to fight against any one. As I get older, I realize, you know, promote the one you love or the ones you love over fighting against the ones that you maybe don't think people should be doing or whatnot. Who cares about your opinion on that? Like, let people do what they want to do, take it to the highest level. And for me, I've just been, you know, more promoting like the methods that I prefer, which are solventless methods. I say solventless, which is kind of impossible because the terpenes are, some of them are solvents. And I guess in that sense, you can't really ever have a solventless product if it's a cannabis extract, unless you're extracting.
People have told us that water is a solvent.
Yeah. Water is a solvent. It's the universal solvent. It's true. It's kind of a funny one. It's kind of just like the most like ironic term for salt. Like I guess what I tell people when they say, I say maybe if you want to promote the fact that it's like non-petrochemical solvents to make this extract, you could kind of get a little more specific about it. But
well, butane's organic, by the way. Butane is organic. Number one. And
all right.
Number two, how you apply the butane to the product makes a huge difference in the outcome of the product. You know, the fact that they are flooding the chamber makes them have to go to step number two of having a column that's very cold to remove the stuff that they got from flooding the chamber, rather than freezing the chamber itself and then just getting the essential oil washed down. Think about it. I mean,
that column is frozen. It's cryogenically frozen. We have a chiller that maintains the temperature of the column.
I know. I'm saying that the reason you need that column is because your extraction chamber isn't up to snuff. It isn't designed right. So you need that column in order, because you flood your chamber and then you drain the flood off, which contains the lipids and the waxes and the oil. And we don't go about it that way. Anyway, enough said about mine.
That way. We're using the
very soon there'll be a bunch of them around, and people will be using them. If you're interested, get in touch. And
hey, I'll reach out again. I have in the past. You know, I'm always happy to use better equipment. We want the best weed to run, and we want the best equipment to extract it. That's what it comes down to.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. I'm not a big fan of oil, but Sam brought, he had a tiny little piece of this sugar wax or whatever it was, and it was smelled beautiful, looked beautiful. I almost wanted to photograph it with my macro lens because it was just like little diamonds shining. Yeah. I think he seems to be a conscious guy. He taught us about vape pens and the insides of the vape pens and what was going on inside those pens before really any of us were thinking. You know, another guy kind of like Jeremy asking the hard questions like, hey, what's your vape pen made out of? What's your element made out of? Are there any things that the oil can come in? What are all the things made out of that the oil comes in contact? You know, what's the space between the element and where the air comes in to vaporize the oil? Like he was asking like questions that, like, let me tell you, 99.8% of vape cart companies absolutely did not want to answer the answer to Sam's questions. So I have a good appreciation for his persistence in knowledge and learning and his ability to execute. So give thanks for coming out today, Sam.
Thank you so much for having me, Bubble Man. There's a lot that I've learned, and I'm happy to be here, able to just show something, and hopefully some people watching can learn something. And that's all I'm trying to bring to Bubble Man's world today. So we've got solvent coming back in. to our solvent tank. This is passively recovering right now because we've got a pretty large temperature differential. The solvent tank here is at 25 psi, and we're still at about 45 psi here in the recovery pot. And in a minute, we're going to kick on this pump, and I'll try to mute my mic again because then it'll get really loud in here, and we'll transfer into the other room to keep chatting with you.
All right. Cool EO. What's going on in the world of Forrest? How's Silas doing?
Oh, doing good, man. Doing good. Thanks for asking. Yeah. We are, I think, with the exception of the morning we were evacuated for the fires, we were 38 days seizure-free at that point, and that chaos kind of threw us through a loop. He had some seizures that night, but hasn't had any major ones since then, so we're somewhere around 50 days and one seizure, you know. So for a kid who had about 20 to 60 a day before this journey, that's pretty damn successful. So we're good.
Just creates a landscape for healing, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, it's 100% pharmaceutical free, which is also important to be healthy because, you know, I'm not all anti-pharmaceutical, but the reality of some of these drugs is when you're tinkering with neurotransmitter regulation, it can do as much harm as it can good. So yeah, he's doing great. And take that method, and now we're working to get things out to all the other kids that we're helping, and yeah, trying to catch up from the fires, but pretty stoked. We got a rosin press. We got our first rosin press for the network. Nice. Stoked. Everyone's talking about machines. We're looking at adding some other machines within the year and really stepping up what we're able to offer these families. So if I just had 2 more of me to work for free full time, I'd be a happy guy. But
you'd be crushing it.
Yeah, but no, we're good, man. Found out I'm probably going to be speaking at the Emerald Cup this year.
Oh, very nice. Very nice.
Yeah,
very
so it'll
nice.
be good to see everybody down there, but it'll also be good to get up on some of these panels and really start to add to the conversation. So that's going to be fun.
Dude, how awesome was that you said Emerald Cup and Alec was like, Pop, hey, what's up? Did someone say the Emerald Cup?
Hey, what's up?
Welcome, dude. We just were like talking with Forrest, literally just mentioned the Emerald Cup and in you popped.
Oh, that's awesome. What were you guys talking about? Discussion panels?
Yes, Forrest is going to be speaking at the Emerald Cup.
Epic. Awesome.
So are we.
Yeah, so I'm excited to see you guys down there and everybody who's watching. I'm excited to be down there. But I was down there last year, but it was like for this top secret sort of MacGyver mission where we were picking up a whole bunch of clones and moms for the network that someone had smuggled in there and for us, and I didn't get a chance to really hang. So this year I'm really excited to be able to participate and see everybody and spend some time there.
Looking forward to hugging you, Forrest. When you come down, check out the teepee and come see us, or we'll find you. One of the two.
We're really looking forward to hanging out with you.
I'm pretty stoked. So
the teepee. How sweet is that? How sweet is that? Come find us in the teepee.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing, and we're right next to Forever Flowering too, so we kind of have this like sweet lounge set up on both sides, and it's just a really good oasis from the chaos that's out there.
We just go and get $5 couches all over Santa Rosa and line the whole teepee with it and have to hang out.
Although this year we may not be able to find so many $5 couches, so we might just use wood and stumps.
Yeah.
Man, I'll tell you.
But it's crazy down there.
Yeah, shout out to everyone who suffered from those fires. It's I mean, I've seen a bunch of different media on it. It's definitely some of the craziest photos I've ever seen. Like, I didn't know like houses and neighborhoods could burn down without the trees burning down or even looking damaged. Like, that looks like some weird shit. I'm like, I don't want to open up the conspiracy channel, but does that not look like seriously strange? Or is that just something that happened?
Yeah,
I think that crazy. Go ahead, Forrest. You take it.
I was going to say it depends. Some of the pictures are hard to see. Some of the trees look like they're alive, but they're in pretty poor shape.
But some are like green leaves and like fully alive, and I'm just like, wow, like that's the first time I've ever seen a forest fire where the forest didn't burn. Like
a lot
trees
of
were standing.
Are meant for that.
They just survived the heat. Hey, it's unbelievable.
Well, are definitely more prepared for fires than homes are. That's for sure. You know.
Yeah.
Well, Lots of these pine trees and coniferous trees actually need fire to be able to breed and be able to seed. So sometimes they'll go 15, 20 years without actually being able to have seeds that are, you know, viable.
Yeah.
So having a fire come through there, and it has to take that really super hot temperature to be able to melt that pitch to be able to create a seed. So
another thing is the firemen were talking about how there's wildfires and tree forest fires, and then there's urban fires, and there's usually a way that they can stop the fire from going into the urban areas. And when it goes into the urban areas, the fire changes, the energy of it changes. And fires really are energy. They start just gobbling up houses. They're just like, whoa, this is fuel. There's like propane and paint and gas or shit everywhere, and it's just gobbling up homes, and it really turns into like an animal.
Different energy.
And like what Sub was saying with the 70-mile-an-hour winds, it just took it from crazy to something more than crazy. It's also of note to say that in British Columbia was one of the worst fires in history on British Columbia. It didn't take out in towns in the same way that it did in California, so it's not to take away from that, but 3 million acres burned in British Columbia this year. 3 million.
Wow.
And Oregon, all of the gorge, some of the most beautiful hikes outside of Portland and the gorge going down the Columbia River all got burnt, and it's a crazy year, really big. We've been putting a lot of help out and support to those people.
For sure. Yeah, no, it's crazy. They set up huge relief funds for it.
You know what's crazy is they just indicted a kid for throwing firecrackers that started that fire.
Ooh.
Oh, did they?
15 years old.
Fireworks.
Yeah.
They were shooting fireworks off, and they were so proud of themselves.
Oh my God.
And then they got in a little chase trying to get away, and then they got caught.
That's pretty sickening, like, to think about. Holy shit. Well, we got 7.
One people saw them. It wasn't like they shot off one bottle rocket and went off. They shot off multiple, and people ran into town to get cops. That's how long they were on the trail for. But anyway, that's, you know, whatever.
Yep. It is what it is. Go figure. Humans were responsible.
Yeah, shocker. You know, I got on my soapbox last night. I'm not doing much social media, but this oh, what's that?
That's loud and obnoxious, that's all.
You know, they canceled the CGA in Hezekiah Allen's group, and some of our Nevada County Cannabis Alliance folks were putting together fundraisers for the families and had raised quite a bit of money for these cannabis farms. And just last night, I believe, or it might have been the night before, but the SAC-B picked up that they refunded everyone's donations because they had to do with cannabis, and they wouldn't allow them to use their fundraising platform. So I got my donation back. Like, what the hell's going on with this? And then I saw the SAC-B picked it up, and it just is absolutely infuriating to me. And I don't hear a lot of people really.
From what I heard, Forrest,
I think they should.
From what I heard, Forrest, it was the processor. It wasn't the site that was doing it. So any of the money processors, once they start processing money and they start to hear it's cannabis, it was pulled from the processor. So that's where it stops. Unfortunately, it's still the money. The problem we still have where we can't have gangs, and I've been kicked out of 36 of them. Unfortunately, it's still an unfortunate reality.
Right.
So
So
I heard
they can't insure themselves properly. They can't participate in the community and prepare like any other responsible business could. And then when they lose everything, including the cash they had on site, their crops, their homes with their children, then the community is not allowed to come together and then support them.
That's evil.
Care. It's absolutely unfair.
That's why we supported Soil King, because he's just an individual who lives on Earth in the area, and there's no one that can stop him from taking money and giving it out to someone who comes to his shop.
And that's why
plenty disasters to know the difference between these large scale. I mean, if you're an undocumented immigrant or a cannabis farmer, you're screwed right now.
Yeah.
That's exactly why I told people to go direct. Like, I was telling people on my chat, look, I'm not sure about any of these GoFunds and stuff. Like, I'll let me find out where the best place, to go to is, and then I'll direct you. And it was Soil King that I also told people to go to.
Yeah, same here.
Kind of in line with that. I mean, it's a slight astray, but I was talking to Tim Blake just the other day, and and Eventbrite just kind of pulled some bullshit on them where, I mean, I guess Visa just, you know, international kind of, I guess, pretty cracked down really hard on Eventbrite and just are doing a big crackdown on anything cannabis related right now. And so from that, Eventbrite basically canceled the Emerald Cup's ability to, you know, basically hold, you know, or to sell tickets through Eventbrite or to kind of do, you know, the competition type stuff of it. But, you know, Tim and the Emerald Cup team, you know, this year are kind of, you know, working together with Red Light Management, who kind of, you know, does hundreds of kind of, you know, major events and festivals across the United States. And so they were able to kind of reach out and basically try to chap Eventbrite. And so Eventbrite, they still kind of disallowed them from being able to, you know, run the contest aspect through Eventbrite because it was directly cannabis related. But they were able to manage to, you know, salvage, you know, still being able to get tickets for the Emerald Cup through it. But it's just mind blowing how kind of, yeah, just, you know, these fucking merchant processors, you know, with their whimsical decisions to kind of just, you know, be these self-appointed guardians of the status quo, and how much effect they can have across the entire industry from banking to, you know, just, you know, in one fell swoop, just chapping a whole event, or let alone more devastating kind of a whole community of people that, you know, are trying to come around a cause like helping fire, you know, raise money for fire relief, and then just kind of chopping people off at the knees from even being able to, as a community, gather to, you know, make any type of difference. So.
It's really interesting because we've done a lot of disaster relief and gone into international areas, and it's big business. Let's just lay it down like that. It's really big business. It's big business for the Red Cross to come in there. They're making a crap ton of money.
Red Cross
They're
is shutting
creating
people
more.
down,
Yeah, Red Cross is actually even going into areas that have maybe a small shelter set up there, or a church that decided that they wanted to take in people, and they're sending out their whatever people to say, hey, we're going to shut this down because this is not a proper shelter. So, you know, it's really big business out there. The World Health Organization, Red Cross, you know, I work with all of those people, and, you know, money and business and corporation comes first before helping the people. So that's why community efforts and energy.
That's why you got to
so
find people on the
this.
ground that you love and support. And even the house that we went to rent a house in Emerald Cup, and it burnt. And then the people's house, it was their rental house. Anyway, both their houses burned. So we're like, oh shit, well, should we just rent an RV, or should we just pitch a tent? What are we going to do? So we kept looking. We found this house in the middle of the Nuns fire. And the guy just said, you know what, we're going to give it to you at our cost, which is like 1/10 of what it would have cost the whole time. And just give, he was a fireman. He's like, just give the rest to the fire agency down there.
So we're going to give them twice the amount of what the rental cost, and really try to fundraise. We know how to give it direct.
And
so.
anyone who's coming to stay at our house, they'll
Yeah.
give some too. And then I have so we're going to be staying in a house in the middle of the fire.
Yeah.
And I think now is the time for Californians in that area to really look at land use and how they're going to deal with the runoff when the rains come, with the ash. I think now using all that burnt wood and all the wood that's around to lay it laterally on the hillsides to stop water from flowing downhill is going to be crucial. Anytime you can get the logs, just go from this to this and just put as many places as you can, make a bed out of it, whatever, but you got to stop the water from washing the topsoil away.
And also, just a side note, you know, we can't look towards these huge organizations like Eventbrite. Like, you know, it's not great that they told, you know, Emerald Cup at the 11th hour that they can't use it. But, you know, we don't really want those kind of people. We need to start bumping up those organizations that are going to help our community so we can help ourselves as well. So
it takes education. It takes us
hopefully
learning.
It's a gift in the end.
Yeah, and that's what's really, you know, interesting, because it's like a lot of these Johnny-come-lately mega corporations or banking institutions that at the 11th hour, you know, are still kind of suppressing or repressing us. But then, you know, all of a sudden, at some point, they're going to be like, oh yeah, we'll accept your money. But it's like, dude, I wish there was something more grassroots or community-based where we could be like, yeah, fuck you, we're subverting, you know, even having any desire as a community to work with you. You know, because like, look what you've done to our community since, and it's like, it's just not acceptable, you know.
It's all the same. The cannabis industry, as it becomes recreational, just becomes corporate and crazy, and it becomes a thing we don't even recognize from where it started. You know, the disaster is on the ground. It's grassroots. You're helping Soil King, Patrick, or anyone else you can, and then all of a sudden you get into these crazy organizations. And really what it comes down to is we just have to make a pact with the community and each other and just be willing to support each other.
And we think that money is the real commodity, but the truth our own community is time is our real commodity. If anybody even has like some shovels, you know, we've got a month in November and we're going to come down, we're going to go bring all of our tools, and we have our skills. So we're just going to go down to farms and try to help build some shacks. And, you know, that doesn't take a whole lot of money to do. It just takes time. So if we switch the idea of what our real commodity is here in this community is giving each other the time.
I'm packing up the tools. We're starting the love train. We're going to go down and rebuild some stuff down there for sure.
Yeah.
Nice. That's good. That's great. I mean, shit. That's the positive attitude that we needed today. It's all love. I love to hear it. I'm sure that people are going to need it down there because holy shit, some pretty insane.
We got to make it what we want it.
Yep, that's for sure. That is for sure. Well, as D420K would say, bong rip. It's time for a little where's my bike?
Hey guys, I got a lot of packages to get ready to go to the mail tomorrow, so I'm going to step off. Thanks for all you're doing. If I don't talk before then, we'll see you guys next week if we're still going, huh?
Thanks, we're excited to start working with Wade as a pure certified farmer who goes above and beyond what organic is and providing medicine to your network in a pure form that's of respect to the earth. And we're really, really excited to start working.
No, he was so excited. He called me up. He's like, they're out. We're going to get, he's getting certified. It's just, you know, Wade really attaches to people who speak, you know, his language. And when he saw what you guys have on your website and what we were talking about when you were out there, he's like, it's everything I've been trying to say about sanctuary and creating the right environment. And so I know he's really stoked to just meet some like-minded folks through this process. So I'll pass that on for him because I hear it every day.
He must have spotty internet today because I definitely sent him the link.
Oh, he's at a wedding.
There we go.
Yeah.
He's at a celebration.
All right, guys. Peace to you, and I will see you next week.
Thanks, Forrest. Have a good one, buddy. All right, I'm just letting my quartz here cool because it's about time to have a little rip. We've had some pretty serious vibes today on church, and we've had some fun vibes. So appreciate all the vibes.
Weed is so good. I wish you guys could smell it.
Lemon meringue.
Lemon meringue.
I could smell that weed.
Man, I wish I could join you for that rip, Marcus. This is the first hash church in a long time I've been a part of and wasn't dabbing during.
Probably a good idea while you're blasting BHO in the background.
Right, we'll wait till we get home.
We got some hash in our doobie.
This episode brought to you by Glob Mods. I'm just joking. Brent sent me these recently. I've always just used Q-tips. I'm not going to lie. I've always just used Q-tips. But hey, cannabis industry, everyone's constantly innovating. Make them pointier. Make them stronger.
Those glob mops are a pretty awesome tool in the lab. They let us get into some corners when we're cleaning out valves and things like that regular Q-tips don't quite do. They're also like a little tighter cotton head. So yeah, I've been digging on the glob box too.
Nice.
A few years ago, I bought what I thought were Q-tips, and I tried them, and it turned out the sticks were plastic. And a bummer, man, a real bummer. I like wooden ones.
Yes. I know how you like your wooden ones. You used to have the wooden matches all the time. That was one of the ways you could tell Skunkman Sam was at the Cannabis Cup. You could look down and see little wooden matches and brand new stainless steel screens with like a single rip taken off of them. And the craziest thing was, this is a crazy statement. Think of how fucked up this statement is. If you picked up those screens, you basically found the best product that you could find in Amsterdam. his burnt screens with like leftover little bits of melt that maybe he didn't catch with the match. It kind of moved over to the side of the screen and he missed it. And he was too busy just loading it up with a new one. I'm telling you, I will admit that I did pick up a few of those screens. Wow. What a sad story for the rest of us though, that it's, I feel that especially after squishing this Where's My Bike the other day, the bud, and I have a little bit of the bud here actually. Got a little bike here, if I can get it open. And I'll tell you, this is some of the stickiest fucking bud I have had the pleasure of touching in a long, long time. It was unbelievable sticky. The quality is so, I hope that it clicks. Come on, camera, give me a click. Really not gonna give me the love, hey? That's too bad. I'll take a picture, some macro photos. 30% yield on this bud.
You can see it pretty well in your video, but that's quite a bit more you've got there than yesterday's video.
Yeah, come on up, Sam. Let's get squishing.
I might need to come up again for some of that Where's My Bike I've been hearing a lot about.
Yeah, dude, I'm telling you, after breaking this bud up with my hands, I was literally just in shock at how sticky it was through and through. I photographed it with my macro lens and I was blown away at how much resin was just everywhere. And it really just made me realize that a lot of people are growing subpar cannabis out there. I think that we really owe it to, I'm sorry, it's the truth. I know you're smiling and you're laughing, but it's like we need to call, listen, if Chimera's gonna call Indra out and Jeremy's gonna call Soil Balance out, I'm calling fucking everyone out on their subpar herb.
Yeah. Thank you.
Jesus.
Thank you. Living in BC, it's atrocities.
Yeah, weed that's cured and still sticky is like magical, and yeah, it's like space weed. And whenever you see it, it's like wow. And
dude,
yeah, sorry, sadly to say, it's few and far between in my life.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I used to see it way more in the 90s, and I don't know what happened. Somewhere along the line, it's just mainly here in BC, although when I travel, I find it even harder to find in Jamaica now, whereas I used to be able to, used to be hard, but now it's like this filter of this enormous amount of bunkweed that you have to like sift through to get to people who are actually, and it's pretty much the same every single time. When you finally meet the people who are producing the absolute flame, they're super conscious. They have this whole idea of what's going on, from symbiotic relationships to like organic to creating live soils to bacterias to like the whole 9 yards to actually processing the resin, in specific ways. And even from the processing of the resin and curing the resin, even taking it as far as, using that resin on a very specific, I guess, type of heat source, whether it's convection or conduction, whether it's titanium or quartz, whether it's sapphire or glass. All of these different things seem to preserve the terpene profile differently, some more than others. Obviously, if anyone's ever blasted any type of dab onto a hot titanium nail, you know that the terpene profile pretty much jumps out the window and just turns into this crazy, like, throat burning, like, right. I don't even know what it is, but I'm sure the science behind it is fucked up. Like, those terpenes are being changed. Everything's being changed into a very different, compared to a super low temp, like, dab out of, like, Sabo's Vape Exhale, which is like the convection, like, it heats up differently with the heat around the glass tube with the quartz cylinder that slides in. I'm gonna have one set up next Sunday, and I'll Vape Exhale the whole episode, because it's one of the only units that I've been able to hit pure terpenes off of, because people are like, can you hit them pure? And I'm like, oh, no, you can't. But then I found that the Vape Exhale, like a tenth of a drop, a tenth of 0.25 mLs put into the chamber and at a nice low temperature, it is seriously one of the most beautiful aromatherapeutic sort of ways of hitting cannabis terpenes that I have ever come across. None of these dishes or quartz compare. Go ahead.
I was just saying, another really amazing way to take in terps and get all of its medicinal compounds is to put it into soda water. So you just put a few drops into soda water, and like the bubbles from the CO2 coming up in your face and drinking that soda water, is a really great way to get terpenes. We found out, wow, you can make a whole party giddy off of just giving out a bunch of terpenes in soda water. It's pretty awesome.
It's just bubbling in your face, terp bubbles when you're drinking it. The sweet, it's awesome.
Nice.
The person who called me out in chat saying, let me read his call out here. It's a good one. Got to give everyone their 5 minutes of fame here. Someone's calling me out. I got to let them call me out. Chucky Wagon. He says, holy crap, subpar, says the guy in Canada who doesn't even grow. Well, currently I'm not growing. It's true. But have I grown cannabis in the last 25 years? Many a pounds. And when I have a license to produce federally cannabis here in my country, in Canada. And the last time I grew, I produced my crop into 5- and 6-star resin. I don't grow huge, but I don't find it impossible to learn. There's a lot of people, even on this panel for that matter, who are willing to share their information. There's social media, there's all these different websites. There's a lot of ways to learn how to grow cannabis. And I think it just takes a little bit of paying attention. I don't think it's as hard as maybe people think. Now, I think that maybe getting the right genetics is difficult for some people, that they might end up wasting their time with a lot of wrong genetics. And I think that people don't fully understand the relationships between the plants and the soil and the food. These can be fairly complex for as simple as it is. It's simple, yeah, if you give the plant the right amount of what it needs, but people make it complex, they can fuck it up. I've seen people grow beautiful herb and then destroy it in the cure. So.
We've been here in BC for 25 years. We've been growing the whole time, and we'll back you up 100%, Marcus. Unfortunately, it is really hard for us to go outside of just the few people that we know and find something that we feel like makes us feel good. So it's important. And also, you know, you can have a lot of techniques and you can have your practices and you can put in certain nutrients and whatever products that you want to do. But, you know, this plant is a sentient being and it feels our energy. And when you have an energy about the plant that you're allying with this plant and it's a medicine for you, it does grow better. It is a fact. So sometimes people just having a little bit more intention towards their grows helps tremendously.
Absolutely. I can remember on my first grow, very small little grow, a couple 400s, me and my buddy got these seeds from a friend and we had a little hidden compartment. We would go sit in this little grow room and just hang out with these seeds on a plate with the moist paper towel as we did it back then. Where am I getting the feedback from? Oh, that might be Indra. I might have to mute your mic, buddy. Yes, lots of feedback coming in there. But just hanging out in the room with seedlings and having that kind of passion. And for me, it was, you know, my passion was always stemmed in trying to grow incredible quality. And I saw a lot of my friends who went into it also kind of wanting to grow incredible quality, but more the focus was, I'd like to make a bunch of money. And not that that was a bad thing. No one was looking down upon them. It just definitely brings you to a different result. If your result is to, you know, really just make a bunch of money, you might find yourself in a different place if your result was to just grow the best possible herb that you could produce. You know, the perfect expression that those genetics are able to, you know, the highest level of expression from cannabinoid and terpene profiles. That's what I'm looking for when I grow cannabis, and I never did it overly complex. I always tried to keep it organic. And the more I was learning about soil, the more, you know, the more intrigued I was by it. And that's not something I know a ton about. That's why I love having soil guys on the show, people that want to talk about soil, soil women as well. Not just soil guys, soil women. Sorry for that little division there. Oh, I got to get rid of
soil people. We're all soil people.
Yeah.
Humus beings.
Yeah, true enough. Let me just, booyah, there you go.
We grew some of our best weed this year because of natural systems. And even though we have products, we don't grow our grow based off products. We make our grow based off nature. And I mean, if you go into the forest and pick up a handful of soil, there's billions of microbes in there. There's no product that comes close to billions. So you can get products and you can do indoors and you can mimic and biomimic and do everything. And that's a great thing to do. But nothing compares to just being able to create this crazy natural environment with all this biomass and everything, just feeding organisms and getting organisms from all over the place. We've had the best time this year really using hay, dirt, and weed water.
That's it.
Phenomenal, amazing growth. Oh, and a lot of love and attention and observation. I mean, it's not like we just plant it and go to bed and wake up and harvest and be like, check it out. It's amazing. It's
time is the commodity.
It's a process. You know, we use washes and predator mites, to make sure that everything stays clean and we don't have to mess with invasive oils or different things that make it, stop it from growing. We're always in this really beautiful, immune boosting style growth, which we're just getting amazing results out of, and it's just so fun to do it. And
also, you were talking about money, and when we're growing a plant for money, a lot of times it's the knee-jerk reaction that gets us into trouble, because people that have a lot of money on the line and something goes wrong with their crop, then they have to come up with a solution ASAP. So their solution sometimes is not a holistic solution. It's a very allopathic solution because it goes right to the problem. It takes like, oh boy, we've got a mite issue. Let's get rid of the mites, rather than looking at it as a real holistic way, because they might not be able to have the time or the resources to be able to look at it in a more holistic view. And I really implore people out there, that do have money on the line. You're going to spend a lot more money when you're looking at it as an allopathic, solution. If you're feeling like one thing is going to take care of it, it's going to cost you more money in the long run.
Being in a reactive position instead of a proactive one.
Yeah, I've seen it too many times, people being in desperate situations to save their crops. And it's just like, ooh, definitely the situations, the choices that they make. Even some fairly conscious individuals I've known in the past have made some fairly unconscious decisions to keep that crop, to get that crop to a level where it's still a sellable product. And I'm just like, oof, not my idea.
Is it actually sellable, or does it just sell?
Well, yeah, because selling, once again, it's a form of manipulative assumption, right? Like, that's why the person selling you the bud wants to say, look at the crystals, look how crystally that shit is. Can you feel that? Look at how nice those buds are. It's like, you know what? You go away and I just want to look at this herb. I don't need to be sold the herb,
Yeah, no, that's what's been so fascinating kind of up to this point. It's been such a showmanship, salesmanship kind of thing. And, up to this point, where even though so much of what has been out there and being hustled isn't organic and hasn't been clean, but being able to talk the lingo and kind of stand in front of like a procurement specialist at a dispensary, if you can eloquently baffle people with bullshit about how much compost teas and all the stuff that you use, up to this point you've been able to kind of get by and almost fake the funk and, kind of get whatever price. But, just as everything's shifting more and more in the consumer marketplace and, the kind of B2B marketplace has become more, I guess, educated and there's these different analytical tools to substantiate quality, it's becoming less easy to fake the funk, and it's fascinating because, at this point, just since there's such a flood of cannabis, like particularly in California, it's like, if it's not A++, and because anything I feel like that's like that cured and still sticky reality, it's always gone, when people see it, without even having to sell it or
poster bud.
Yeah, exactly. But if it's anything less than that, the market is drying up more and more, quicker and quicker, and
yeah. I have a question for you, Alex. What is the highest percentage of terpenes you found in herbal cannabis?
What's interesting is typically we see kind of on average, the highest is kind of around, like on average what we see is, 2.5 to 3.5% kind of, has always been the, kind of, where it peaks out. But what's really interesting is certain genetics, like we've seen continuously kind of, able to come back at like 5+%, and what's really trippy about that is like, yeah, these certain genetics, that we see, like whenever somebody will send it in a test, we'll have to kind of go through like, 2 to 3 different repreps on the bud to kind of, confirm the result. Because if anything kind of tests above our, we have these like high marks where, these outlier, I guess, marks where if it's above that, then it almost immediately, part of our quality system, it immediately kind of triggers us to reprep and reanalyze it and have more, eyes on those results.
Yeah, well, the numbers you're talking totally make sense to me. We did terpene analysis for years, and we got quite similar numbers.
Oh, nice. Oh, that's awesome. That's really good to hear, actually, because yeah, I mean, it's puzzling to see most all herb, when it's cured perfectly and dried perfectly, and it kind of comes around 3-ish% plus or minus. But then certain strains just just whack it at 5+%, 6%. It's just like, wow, that's insane, But yeah, I mean, that's definitely a fascinating thing, And with this terpene classification system that we've been creating, we part of it, we created this like outlier trigger where if any strain that we pass through this algorithm kind of has some anomalously high terpenes or certain terpenes that never really express themselves in 98% of the data set, kind of they get flagged as an outlier for secondary review. And I'm really excited about this outlier flag because it kind of educates us on like when there's true novelty. But also when, certain things happen where there might be some possible internal lab error by, an analyst that might be, kind of, misidentifying a co-eluding peak or something. But what's interesting is what we noticed whenever, we were going through and doing, kind of a lot of analysis around the outliers, we saw that, a tremendous amount of them were kind of, swag. And so we created what we're calling like a swag flag, and so a swag flag basically is, what we see is like, if it has less than 0.75% total terpene concentration and it's got, certain higher boiling point terpenes as the dominant primary terpenes, because typically what we see is, primary terpenes will, are all typically monoterps, so like pine.
Are the samples fresh?
Well, oftentimes they'll either be fresh leaf, where phytol will be like a dominant terpene, but in the times where there's like what we're calling swag flag, it'll be basically below 0.75%, and it'll have a combination, and it won't have pretty much any of the primary terpenes or any of the primary monoterps like pinene, terpinolene, limonene, myrcene, and then it'll also not really have a whole lot of the sesquiterps, which we see very common, which are beta-caryophyllene and humulene. And so what we see is in the huge, it seems like about like 5% of our total data set, or no, I'm sorry, about 10% of our total data set, when passed through this algorithm kind of hit, basically what we're calling swag flag. And so that'll be basically less than 0.75%, and it'll have the following terpenes as the primary terpenes in it. And that'll be basically guaiol, neurolidol, bisbolol, and like caryophyllene oxide. And so it'll be these alls, OL, as the last terps. I'm sorry, my dogs are freaking out. I gotta run. Give me 1 second.
The dogs were like, no, we can't let this terp knowledge drop go down. We're just gonna have to hold back for a second. And
I think that it's interesting that, in the wine world, which is a very old industry, it's been happening for a very long time with legality and acceptance by community, we're not really talking about the percentage of alcohol. We're not talking about the percentage of, sugars that are in it, or all of the different terpenes that are in it. It's really come down to, maybe because it's a more mature industry, I'm not sure, but it's come down to, how does it make you feel? How does it taste? And how does it smell? And it's just really interesting that we've gone in all different kinds of gamuts with the cannabis.
In the wine industry, people buy the varieties that they like, Chardonnays or a red wine or whatever. And that's all based on the terpenes, etc.
Right.
It's just interesting that we don't test them scientifically. It's something that has been
because
happening.
People know from experience.
Yeah, we need the cannabis sommelier kit with all the different terpenes.
That's what we're saying. That's what we're talking about. That would be nice to invigorate that more within our community. It's like hard to do, but it's important, and I would love to see more of it.
The labs can't tell you how it makes you feel. You know, we can take guesses on what those terpenes are supposed to make you feel.
But consumers have to buy based off numbers.
But people that, you know, we all have really different cannabinoid receptor systems. So.
Well, it's actually the same with wine. But if you drink a Chardonnay, you're going to expect it to be similar to the other Chardonnays. And so it's just experience. When people have enough experience with knowing what particular, you know, if it's say 20% THC in a particular terpene profile, it will cause these effects. With the different terpene profile, it will cause those effects.
Right.
And it also comes down to terroir. So that Chardonnay terroir in France is going to be different than the one in Oregon, and people know that, and that's a more mature industry in that sense, where we can be like, oh, of course we know the dirt in that area and what it's going to affect on the flavor.
And the terpenes are going to be affected by the soil.
Well, terroir is a bit funny with cannabis because so much of it is grown in man-made soil. It's not really terroir if it's man-made soil, is it?
Or in pots, yeah. And I'm sorry if I may jump into it. I apologize. I just had to scoot off. My dogs are just barking. But just wanted to finish the point, you know, because it wasn't just to make the point about swag flag. That was a pretty, you know, that was a really interesting finding, because we saw in swag in these certain, you know, subset of samples, you know, it'll have less than X percent, 20, you know, about 0.75% total terpenes. And most of the mono and sesquiterpenes that are the primary terpenes that distinguish most smell of you know, the primary and secondary terpenes that virtually any strain that we've tested in California has, you know, it'll then concentrate these certain other supposedly, you know, I guess non-desirable or more highly or boiling point terpenes that are more, I guess, distinguishing of you know, swag, I guess, in that sense, because you know, pretty much, you know, things like I was saying, like, you know, caralphenol oxide, phytol, neurolidol, alpha-bismol, those, what we see to a really high degree is, you know, when those concentration of terpenes and it's below 0.75%, and you verify kind of on the pictures and everything like that, it's typically like, yeah, really old kind of degraded material, probably sat around for a really long time. You know, but once we kind of, you know, in this outlier kind of grouping, when we you know, started to differentiate and see that there are, you know, there's the need for the swag flag, we also identified, you know, the need for like what's, you know, I mean, it's not the name of it, but what we're tentatively calling like a fuego flag. And so that's when something's like incredibly above average in total terpene concentration. And so what we see with that is, you know, kind of, you know, about 5% of our total data set, you know, will basically be above 3.5% terpenes. And then, you know, the primary monoterpenes that are present in that will just be soaring, you know, things again like alpha-pinene, terpinolene, myrcene, limonene, and, you know, and strains that are like, you know, cookies and sherbet and stuff that'll be beta-caryophyllene dominant, which is more on a sesquiterpene level. But, you know, a very small subset of these samples will be in that above 3.5%. And so, you know, in that we see up to 5-6+ % total concentration for these very specific strains, which kind of correlate kind of, yeah, I mean, there's the component to how it was grown environmentally, you know, and of course how it was kind of dried and cured post-harvested. But certain strains, you know, when grown and harvested, you know, whether indoor or outdoor, seem genetically have to have a propensity to overall test higher in total concentration than others that might just cap out at a certain percent, even when they're dried and cured perfectly. But yeah, it's pretty interesting because with, you know, kind of just, you know, with, I guess Sam, you were asking, you know, it's interesting how certain genetics will basically have that ability, but then, you know, it's also really interesting to us how, you know, we test, you know, 30, I think it's like 33 or 34 total terpenes at this point. You know, we, in the future, eventually we'll be kind of testing for different alcohol esters and flavonoids, but of the 33 terpenes that we test for, you know, pretty much there's about 5 to 9 that ever show up in any real significant concentration. And the primary terpenes that distinguish most smell and how well it comes out in virtually all strains we test, you know, really are these, you know, 4 or 5 monoterpenes.
No, that's pretty much what we found. But we would test for. We had about 100 standards at the maximum, and we used to find a little over 50 terpenes in measurable amounts in the average cannabis variety we tested.
Right, and but as far as like, and the 75 to 80% of the concentration, did you see more than those 5 or 5, 9?
No, there's maybe 9 or 10 or 11 that were common, like you say.
Yeah.
But the rest of them are seldom found and seldom in large amounts.
Right. Yeah, and that's really interesting what we see. But what's really kind of cool about all that is, in so many ways, I think that really provides a roadmap to help identify terpenes as the #1 metric to determine quality and how well something was dried and cured and how well the terroir was brought out in the strain and the environment, and just being able to use as a comparative analytic.
Well, but you don't want just terpenes. You want the right terpenes.
Of course.
Everybody has a different opinion what those right terpenes are.
Yeah.
This is a great point as far as all the statistics that were being thrown out, and I just wanted to point this back to Peter and let him know that's why I called out his terpene analysis as far as advertising for the Soil Balance Pro, because the numbers he was quoting as average for the industry were far below swag, in my opinion, and then the numbers brought up were still below that level. And so these are the types of data that if you shared with your customers and correlated to the product, I think would be much more received. When I saw the terpene test, whatever numbers, it was way off from this conversation that seems more accurate to me. So I just wanted to relay that.
Thank you for that, Jeremy. Thank you. And I just want to say for everyone who's listening, here at Kind Roots, we pride ourselves on being an honest, conscious, and transparent corporation. I know that there are probably still some questions out there. And so for anyone who's watching or who sees this later, we welcome you. Send us your questions. Contact us on our website. It's soilbalancepro.com. There's a contact form there. And we'll make sure and answer all of your questions. We want to be as transparent as possible. And we're here to make this industry better. That's really what we're here for. Jeremy, thank you for making sure that we're tightening up our ship. I'm super excited to be working with you. I hope that you'll even consider mentoring us. We want to work with you and be partners and work together in this industry. And so, again, thank you for making sure that we've got our shit together.
Yeah, man. Yeah, and I'll address the terpene question just really quick. So the grower who got 0.4 terpene, that was their lab, right? So the lab here in Arizona, when they tested it, his terpenes were 0.4%. And so after you use our product, he went up to 1.5% total terpenes, and there were 8 different types. And so I was really proud of that. I know some guys are hitting 3, 4, and 6, and 8%, which is epic, man. Their biology must be incredible. So hands off to those guys, but this gentleman wasn't one of those guys. He was just like a regular grower, and he had been growing kind of in his home, and he was blown away by the increase to get close to 2%, We were proud of that. And so that's kind of where we came. But what was cool about the tests was that there was 6 or 7 different types of terpenes instead of just the 3 spikes that you normally see. So we thought that was pretty unique as well. And that's why we showed the data. But one thing, because we both kind of have to get going, and one thing I did want to talk to Jeremy about is I feel like our microbes really benefit your amendments. I feel like your amendments would benefit us as well and the growers that we're working with. I know you're putting out some great stuff. I've heard great things about your product, and so I hope that we can kind of shake hands, man. Maybe try and work together in this industry, because it's kind of like Dragonfly was talking about. It's a synergy. Our product also, if the microbes come together and work as a team, they're much more effective in helping this world, and that's what we're all here to do. We got to take care of nature, man. Our fucking planet is dying. And it's time for us to come together, man, and settle our differences, which I would really like to do, and explain everything. So, if anybody has questions, come to the site. But it is time for balance in our soil, man. It's time, like like Dragonfly was talking about, that biology, that synergy, that what they're working with, that life is why they're helping the people, the fire victims. They're giving organisms, and that's what we want to be. So we'd love to support you, Jeremy, and we appreciate you from many different levels. I'm humbled by your work for the last 3 years helping organic farmers, man. I'm impressed by you and what you're doing, seriously. So I will say that.
Are you an organic gardener there at Build a Soil? Are you currently growing cannabis?
All day, every day. Yeah,
nice.
We have a live demonstration right in our retail store where you can actually see that we practice what we preach, and we do side-by-side demonstrations right there on the retail floor.
Nice.
We also demonstrate some of our customers as well as our own personal gardens, and we're very transparent in that. And I'm always interested in the base root of transparency of products so that I can share the results with other people. And when I'm looking at the microorganisms there, at least on the list that I'm able to find, I find more affordable sources for similar microbes. And I think that a lot of what they might be able to provide is proprietary at this point. So for me to work forward with any products, I need a little more transparency. And I think I'd be a lot more likely to work with Dragonfly's products based on their transparency than I would be with the soil balance. But that doesn't mean it's going to permanently be that way. If there was more transparency in all the specialty ingredients, I could balance that against my budget in the marketplace with other products that may or may not have those same ingredients. So that's kind of how I operate. I don't expect everyone to operate that way. Not everyone goes down to the individual level and cares what they may or not be able to do locally with other producers. So I get that. I think there's definitely a place for maybe a longer, more drawn out conversation for this. But at the same time, I think that we've seen a lot of change on their end already. So it's important to know.
Hey, where are you located, Jeremy?
Colorado. I'm in Montrose, which is on the western slope.
Okay, cool. I wasn't even sure.
Kind of cool. I asked for this 3 times, and I haven't gotten a response to it. I'd love to have some third-party independent lab, test some of the Build a Soil microbes against our microbes. If that's
I don't have any microbes.
Or products, or because as far as transparency, every organic material out there, like especially soil, is going to have over 1,000 different strains of bacteria. So it'd be interesting to see what,
when they're formulated in the lab, they're usually individually formulated and then mixed. And so I just look to the manufacturer of the products I research.
Yeah.
Give me that info, but it's a challenge with labeling. Even one of my favorite older products, EM1, labeling of what's really in there. So I get that.
Hey, does SC Labs do testing like that, Alec? Have you guys ever tested for?
We don't do kind of like a soil microbiology kind of microbial analysis. I know of a couple labs that can kind of post up. I know one in Southern Oregon, like the one that kind of does a lot of soil food web stuff. For kind of the Elaine Ingham kind of team. I can't think of it at the top of my mind, but I do know of a couple different labs I can post on the thread. Yeah.
Cool.
Well, nonetheless, the offer's there, Jeremy. If you'd ever like to work with us, we would be honored, man. We respect what you do. So thank you. And thank you guys for the space. Marcus, thanks for coming out of retirement for this, dude. Like, super grateful to you, man.
Yes.
Thank you.
Awesome, guys. Thanks for coming in for sure. It was well, it's almost 11:30. We had what is Sam in an LED grow room now?
Yeah, I moved locations into one of the grow rooms here at ECC. You guys were talking about subpar cannabis being grown like half an hour ago, so I figured I'd come in here and show some of our subpar cannabis. No,
it's looking pretty stacked, bro. Dude,
I think these are just in like week 4, so they're not looking super huge yet. But growing under these LED lights really seems to help with their terpene synthesis, and comparing them to like Avitas and a few other lights, you see like 2.5 times the terpene development out of these. I think these are some kind LEDs.
Those look pretty stacked for week 4, man. That's awesome. And yeah, LEDs, it's pretty cool. Like, I mean, I worked in the hydroponic industry for, a few years before we opened up SC Labs. And, everybody was always promising so much about LED technology and what had the potential to do. And it was always like an unfounded claim. But just seeing some of the new kind of LED kind of setups like these days, it seems like it's actually starting to, Richter kind of, and, comparable kind of, to a lot of the HID double-ended bulb like reality.
It definitely seems like it's getting better. I worked at a previous facility that didn't have nearly this quality of LEDs, and I think our yield is almost double here, but the yield is still not quite what like a Gavitas can put out. So we might be looking to do like a mixture of different kinds of lighting for some next rows that we do, but still looking into that.
Wow.
Thanks again for bringing me aboard, Bubble Man. I'm gonna have to take off too. We got our run done, and I think Indra just dipped out, but I wanted to thank him for the discussion today, and hopefully we can have some more of that. Sorry for the poor quality tools I have, but I'm just working with what every other extract technician making oil worldwide is using.
Dude, I appreciate you sharing it. I mean, you know, it's not my preferred method, but hey, you offered to share, and I thought that why not? It seems like a nice thing to share. We appreciate the grow room. Say hi, bye to your partner for us, and I'm sure we'll see you again soon.
Thanks for having us, B-Man. See you guys soon.
Right on, Sam. Oh, well, it was a very eclectic church today. All sorts of different things going on. We lost Chimera fairly early on. He said the funniest thing when he left. He said something like, well, I guess it's all rainbows and unicorns, everyone. I'm out. And he's just like, he was just funny.
Color of the rainbow.
Yeah, he came in super aggressive. You know, in his defense, yes, lots of people have been like, yeah, when are we going to see this unit that Indra's been talking about for 2 years on Hash Church? So I guess probably sooner than later. Yeah, he came out. He's like, whoa, come on, dude, is this a sales thing, or are we going to see that? Like, he was just like, he's Chimera, right? And I love him for it. Definitely. I dig all the different vibes. It's
all he wants to see is the science, which I completely back, and I think all of us will completely back. All we want to do is see the science. Talk is talk. Bullshit is bullshit. We see more bullshit in this industry and have for decades. So that's why we look for science now to separate the wheat from the chaff. So I mean, you know, I look forward to seeing the science, because from the talk, the science apparently is there, and the science should actually back it up, right?
I might just do. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say too, and on that note, you know, I mean, just kind of hearing kind of, and I guess I'm a little kind of new to, you know, some of the, you know, kind of back and forth about the soil balance and kind of, you know, that whole conversation and you know, but I mean, that's the thing, you know, the science on its own, you know, has to step up significantly also. It's like there's a lot of, you know, quote science and analytical labs doing testing, but there's also a lot of kind of inconsistency and inability to compare apples to apples from within the analytical lab community, you know. And so for what it's worth, we're really excited kind of here in California and how kind of California's following Oregon, and how Oregon kind of, you know, really set the standard in a bit of a way, because, you know, unlike Colorado and Washington, you know, who kind of set the path in regulation and how kind of lab testing and all that is part of a regulated market. You know, in Oregon, you know, what they did is they realized that, you know, it's almost like the chicken's guarding the hen house in a bit of a way, because it's like if you're going to have robust regulations on people that are producing cannabis from farm level to producing extracts to making infused products, you know, you almost have to have even stricter kind of regulations on the labs. And so kind of, you know, in Oregon, they basically required labs, you know, that are doing testing to not only, you know, to basically have full ISO 17025 accreditation on every single assay that they offer to the public. But then further, each lab has to go through routine kind of proficiency testing on the state level to demonstrate that they're able to do this, you know, repeatable and accurate, precise testing. Because, you know, it's like if one lab, if, you know, they're kind of testing and showing, you know, they haven't fully gone through formal method validation on their terpene run, and you know, they're not fully kind of resolving their peaks and having co-eluting terpenes, or, you know, kind of misidentifying compounds, you know, the data kind of isn't able to be held up like as, you know, strong and comparable to, you know, lab data in one area or another area. And so, you know, I think progress within the industry is, you know, kind of really great. And I think regulations, you know, kind of in each state and the way each state's been building off the last, you know, are going to just, if anything, they're going to strengthen kind of the science and analytics that people can use and trust, and kind of further dial and develop what they're doing. And, you know, the strong shall persevere, and those that aren't able to kind of meet the muster are going to be not able to even sell their testing. And so I think it's going to really step up the game for everybody, and it's going to create strong kind of analytics that then will be comparable from state to state or lab to lab. And I think everybody welcomes that, because I think that might be one of the biggest frustrations across the entire community is like, okay, this lab shows these numbers and that lab shows these numbers, which lab's full of shit, which lab's right. And if anything, it kind of creates a massive distrust from across the industry, because like nobody really knows, and then there's a lot of hearsay, and everybody's got team this lab or team that lab, and there's these loyalties. But it's like, I think it'll all kind of lay out accordingly with testing regs, and whenever that happens, big ups to any lab that's able to meet those requirements, because no labs, I mean, just like kind of the cannabis industry, no crop has ever been regulated as much as cannabis is about to be in any agricultural sector in the United States. And I think it's going to be really fascinating what comes from it. But also on the lab level, no lab has ever been regulated to where they have to have such wide accreditation on every aspect of their service, and then further proficiency testing. And so, I think, those that,
well, not only further proficiency testing, you're
above.
going to have to deal with bulk testing on top of that, because it's no longer going to be just a few of us testing. Everyone's testing, which means your load is also, and everybody's load is going to grow exponentially, so it's going to be a growth spurt all the way around, which is going to be interestingly to see.
Absolutely.
Also, talking about labs as far as testing of cannabinoids and terpenes and all of that, testing soil is incredible. We're testing biology of soil, but are we testing the sociology of the soil? Are we testing what happens, when you put it into different environments? As soon as you take a soil out of one environment and put it into a different environment, it changes. Mm-hmm. And also, just to add, we're dealing with an adaptogenic plant. So she's going to outsmart us every single time,
You can find different test results on different parts of the plant, right? Like top to bottom, inside, outside. What have you found on that, Alec?
So much of that, I mean, from what we see, so much of that has to do with like cultivation method, with the way the plants are pruned. If you got like a 14-foot tall outdoor plant that's never been pruned and it's just completely shading any light from, exposing within the canopy, we can see from one part of the bud or one part of the plant to, top buds, say 10, 12% variance from bud to bud. But whenever we see, very effective kind of management of kind of canopy and, kind of pruning, and, helping to expose light to all areas of the plant, all of a sudden it gets to the point where, we see tremendously less variance, like couple percent plus or minus, at the most. And so much of that also depends on whether or not it's grown indoor or outdoor. There's no mimicking the sun. And so distance traveled from the sun to get to the bud, whether it's top or middle or bottom, is very little difference, so then it's so much of it is about how you're pruning and growing your plants, as opposed to indoor, where every foot below the bulb is such an exponential loss in lumens that, it compounds, especially then on how well the canopy's kind of grown out or, or completely forested, then, we see much higher variance, I guess, in those cases whenever something's indoor and grown under HID lighting and then not pruned well. So, but on the, just wrapping the point, but then like same thing with indoor, whenever people are using like double-ended bulb technology and have really effective kind of pruning and, keeping of their plants and how they haircut and do all the things, then like we see like almost no variance from, small to middle to bottom or, to top. But so much of that's how, people are growing their plants and, kind of ongoingly, and actively taking care of pruning and such.
Well, going back to the lab thing in regards to, a lab makes a mistake or has an error occur, and it's like, it's true. People really like, it's not like being a weatherman where you can be wrong half the time. Like it's like having those little differences really causes this sort of like doubt in the community, distrust, and you're right. You see them picking sides. And welcome back to Chimera. That's you, Chimera?
Yeah, well, I mean, I had to come back to clear my name from being misleading here.
What did we say?
I'm surprised he's even brave enough to show his face again.
No, I mean, I just don't. I don't think I was being aggressive. I think I'm just. I like to call it like it is. And,
oh, dude, listen, everyone in the chat. I didn't see one person going "fuck Chimera." I think one person might have said that it was a bit pompous, but you had most people behind you, so. No,
well, again, it's not about popular opinion. I'm just like I got to say my piece. That's just what I do, you know, whether it's popular or not. So.
I appreciate it.
Well, if you know what's his name speaks for the trees, you speak for the science.
Yeah, with a judo chop.
I mean, I speak for the trees. You get to speak for the science.
I take that as a huge compliment, and you know, I really, again, it's nothing against Indra. I don't have a thing for Indra. I don't have a hate on for him in any way. It's just at a certain point in time. I mean, it's like it could be a car, it could be a grow light, it could be anything. You know, when the guy that's pushing the technology that he's got a vested interest in is the one that's saying, "Trust me, you got to take my word for it. No, you can't see any results, and no, you can't see the process." I mean, it's a little bit too Wizard of Oz for me. You know what I mean?
It's a little bit too Barnum and Bailey.
Yeah, and man, let's be honest. There's no shortage of Barnum and Baileys in this business, right? And we're at the point now where we're in transition from stoner lore and claims to science-based evidence, right?
Yep.
And I think we got to move into that world and embrace that world,
right?
And not take it as an insult or a criticism when someone says, "Hey, justify your claims. Hey, show us how you're doing it." Or, you know, even if it's a patented machine or whatever, like, I don't care.
Replicatable science stands on its own.
Yep.
It's not enough to just say.
That's what I'm saying over here.
It's not enough to say, "Take my word for it and buy my shit." Right? At least it's not enough for me.
Wait a minute. I copyrighted bro science. Are you telling me it's a waste of time?
It's not enough to say, "Take my word for it." Yeah.
Well, that's why we love you, Chimera, because you just say it how it is. I've always appreciated it. I've known you friggin' God, it's got to be 20 years, or 18 or 19 years. That's a long time.
Where does one get rainbows and unicorn farts?
Oh, when you said that, when you left the chat room, dude, I laughed my head off. What did you say?
The other day.
Peace, love, rainbows, and unicorns, man. And hey, I love rainbows and unicorns as much as the next guy, but like, I'm not buying stuff from him. You know what I mean?
No, I get it, dude. It's
funny. You don't get wholesale rainbows?
It's kind of today what the whole episode was really to be about, you know, just people like, that's the thing about church too. You're welcome to come on here, but people will call you on shit if you come on here and say certain things. You'll be, you know, you're in a room full of people who tend to know their shit to a certain level. I have someone at my door. Please all continue. I will be back.
Anyway, if Indra's watching, you know, I like Indra. I like the things that he's done, and I want to believe in his technology. And if he's got it and he's doing it, then that's awesome. You know, I encourage him to do that. But at a certain point in time, you know, we all got to stand up and show what we're doing, and we want people to buy in. And we're not talking about small buy-ins here. I mean, these are like $50,000, $100,000 machines. So when people are going to lay down that kind of money, that's okay that they ask questions, and you don't just have to take somebody else's word for it. Anyhow,
hey Chimera, will you be at the Emerald Cup?
I hope so. I hope I'll be down there, man.
I'll be there. I'd love to see you guys.
Didn't you get asked to speak, Chimera?
Not yet. No, not yet. But you know, I'm around.
I thought for sure that we had you on a panel. Let me double check that. I'll get back to you this afternoon.
Yeah, I was just down there, actually. I was just down in San Diego and LA checking out these this new Fluence lighting technology. I don't know if you guys have heard of these things.
Yeah, you know, that's we were just checking out, and I was just kind of speaking to some of the LED stuff and where it was and the promise of it and where it's come, and you know, Fluence is actually on the tier of some of the lighting I've seen, and I know people that have been utilizing that are kind of actually showing to be pretty comparative to, you know, some of the highest end HID lighting. you know. And so, I mean, I haven't seen it personally through kind of, you know, running a grow on my own with it. And so I'm, you know, I've historically been very skeptical about LED because I've seen kind of where it started, you know, and how much promise there was with it whenever there was a lot of, you know, overpromise and under delivering, I guess. But yeah, I mean, from people I know that are actively running Fluence, they're stoked, and apparently, yeah, it's crushing.
Yeah, the flowers. Listen, I went to a facility. These MedMan guys. I don't know if you know this MedMan crew down in.
Totally.
Anyway, I went and checked out their show in Burbank and or Sun Valley or whatever it is. But it was, I mean, it was pretty cool. They got these stacked systems they're doing with like these racks essentially, like it's vertical farming style with a couple of layers of flat gardens under LEDs.
And more kind of sea of green type. Yeah,
it's all sea of green, stacked and packed. Really beautiful bedroom, really beautiful, you know, moms, and I really liked the production setup in there. The flowering rooms, they were not bad. They're producing beautiful flowers. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But I happened to go to Denver after it and saw some old friends down there, and they're really killing it using these, you know, the old double-ended technology, which I guess is not old, but the Gavita double enders. Way up high in the ceilings, and man, the size of the flowers was just no comparison.
Yeah, it's mind blowing.
Right.
Yeah,
so
just when double ended came on the market, it was just like, wow! Those that kind of really changed the game on its own in lighting. I feel like whenever they came online, and so just, you know, thinking about something that could compare. I mean, it's cool if LED can, but I mean, I just haven't seen anything compared to like what double ended can do.
Yeah, well, one day there'll be a new lighting technology, and you know, we're always going to be skeptic because that's what happens when you got an industry standard.
Yeah.
And someone comes in with a new technology, whether it's disruptive or it's just a new thing, you know.
But you know, and so much of it too, you know, because I really appreciate kind of what LED can do, just because the temperature control. But you know, so much of, you know, I mean, 80% of so much success, you know, in cultivation is going to be in the environment created. You know, less than one single factor or another.
Well, and that's the thing, right? It's like when you go into these rooms, and it's like the grower's doing it one way, and you got to be able to. How can you tease apart the effect of the light versus the effect of the cultivation environment? When you can't see what the growers do it every day, it's hard for you to be able to say, "Oh, this much is due to the light, this much is due to the soil, this much is due to, you know, the environment and all that kind of stuff." So. It's not an easy thing to vet and try to figure out if you're going to switch. So really what you got to do is take some lights, set up your own experiment on a side-by-side, and then, you know, you can control the variables that you can control and vary the lights, and then come to an understanding.
And make slow changes, doing side-by-sides within, not just a bunch of radical changes, you know, because then it's really hard to kind of discern which individual thing is making the huge difference.
Yeah, and well, that's, you know, that's one of the reasons I got so much love for SC is it's like, to me, it's all about the lab, right? What are the numbers coming out on the cultivation at the end? Like, I don't just want to see the grow. I want to take the flowers to SC and have them test it, right? You have to. Otherwise, you're not getting the data, right? You're not really understanding what's happening. Because you know, biomass is one measure, right? But if you're pumping out a bunch of flour that's not high oil, it's not high cannabinoids, it's got no flavor, I mean, that's not what I want. You know, we all want the goods. Everybody wants the diddly dank, right? So
I just wanted to come on real quick on my trip home and thank you for bringing up that point, because I'm right there with you, man. I just want to see some proof, want to see some more. I'm trying to make a career out of this, and I want to use the best equipment possible. And to just hear about it and see the same two pictures for the last year and a half has been kind of frustrating. Especially if it is a game-changing, revolutionary new piece of equipment. I'd want access to it, and I'd want to know more about how it works before investing the money in buying that equipment.
Yeah, and you're sitting there live on TV showing everybody exactly what you're doing, right? There's nothing to hide. There's no magic boxes at this point in time, right? It's like it doesn't work that way.
I'm coming on here because there's things I learned from Hash Church, and then there's a few things I can share. And if Indra's in a place where he can share this stuff, I hope he will. It's just been a long time to not have that stuff shared.
Yeah, well, I think what happened, really, to be perfectly honest, is that he announced it. Listen, he did all the work, and I'm sure he built one of these things, like Marcus said, and was able to run the oil, the hemp seed for oil, and and all that kind of stuff, and that's great. And you know, he built the technology, and they went and got the patents and secured that all, and that's awesome. If that's, you know, that's fantastic. If that's the way it is. But at a certain point in time, when it comes onto the market and it's time, when you're asking people to drop $50, $60, $100,000 on a piece of equipment, I mean, it's okay to be for someone to be a skeptic and say, hey, I want to know. I want to be able to look at your technology and see that it's doing this thing that you say it's doing. I mean, it's not enough for me to show up with a couple of pounds and somebody, you know, disappears behind the wizard's curtain and then comes back with a...
That's the analogy that comes to mind too, is that it's kind of like this mysterious curtain. We don't know exactly what's taking place behind it. We know what Indra says is taking place. A lot of the things he's saying about the thermodynamic efficiency of the machine, if it does operate in that way, makes sense to me as somebody with a little background in engineering. But there's still no actual proof of it. So that's what I'm very excited to see happen, hopefully soon.
Yeah, me too. And so I hope that Sheldon has a client down in California that's apparently bought one of these things, and the last word I had was that it was in delivery or to be delivered and in process of being set up. And when that happens, then, you know, maybe we'll be able to go and have a look at the machine and see it in action. And you know what?
I hear the same thing from Dr. Scaldone, and I'm equally as anxious as you are to see it turned on.
Yeah, well, we're all anxious to see. I mean, everybody wants to see the new technology, and if it's the shit, then I'll back it 100%. Like, there's nothing personal against.
If it works and I can see it works, I will suggest to my company that we buy one.
Yeah, exactly, and that's all we're trying to do.
Way forward. To have no solvent loss, because, you know, I'm losing about 1.5 pounds of solvent for a run there, and to get that down to 0 would be awesome. We'd save a lot of money and not having to recover and do distillations and the time it takes to add the solvent to a machine. So I think it could be super cool.
Yeah, well, there's efficiencies that come when you're doing a batch process of that size, right? Like, I mean, listen, if it works, I'm going to be right there behind him. I've absolutely nothing against Indra. It's just
I want to be able to support it like enthusiastically, but until I see it, I can't.
It just always makes me nervous, man, when it's like a bicycle or a car or running shoes or whatever, when someone says, just take my word for it and hand me over a big stack. I mean, I don't think that's unreasonable. So anyway, whatever. I wish him the best, and I hope he brings these machines to market and kills it, because if they're as good as he says they are, then that's a big win for a lot of people, including him and including the community. So let's get it out there.
A lot of people like me, it'll make a lot of our jobs even easier. So
yeah, I mean, it's one of the things I really like about Indra and his machine is that he's thought about all these safety issues, right? Right back to when he first came on the show, and he was talking about the rooms with nitrogen and everybody working with the separate oxygen supply, and I thought that nitrogen thing in the room was a little bit of brilliance, like to stop to displace the oxygen, so that if you have a fault in the system, that you're not going to have a catastrophic failure. And same with his tuning fork, his tuning fork switch. Again, I thought that was a really beautiful solution to a complicated problem. So, let's not make it like I'm cutting down Indra or trying to be aggressive with him. I'm not. I'm just, I think that we all need to move into a world where when you're putting up claims, and let's be honest, these claims have health implications on people's health, right? With residual solvents and all the chemistry that's going on inside the process. Like Sam was saying, Michelle Sexton just released a paper on CO2 extraction, and how, as Mark Sheldon has been saying for a long time, that there's chemistry that happens with cannabinoids and terpenes, and they undergo changes so that the profiles that come out of the concentrates are different than the profiles of the flower.
Yep.
Right? And so when people are taking this stuff and throwing it on a nail or inhaling it into their lungs, I mean, it's only right that we ask those questions, and we're able to see the results, through services like SC Labs. I mean, that's what this community has become, right? We're as D'Angelo says, we're out of the shadows and into the light, and sometimes we're under the microscope light, and that's okay.
Yeah, and on that kind of note too, just with in reference to like Michelle Sexton's paper, it's really fascinating because I mean at this point I kind of wish like Mark Scaldone was on because I'm sure he has some pretty good information on this. But a lot of we see more and more people are testing distillates and these clear concentrates, and so often we'll see somebody send them in, and then this goes back to like the very beginning, first kind of clear type, kind of post-processed extracts that we tested back in the day with like Dr. Gold, if anybody remembers that product, kind of these clear extracts, oftentimes that are like super refined that can test up to, high, mid to high 90s in kind of decarboxylated delta-9 THC. In those, there's very little to no terpenes left because of the heat processing, et cetera, et cetera. But very oftentimes, tremendously often we see people sending in distillates that have basically a lot of the delta-9 degraded into delta-8 THC. It'll kind of go into, there'll be significant amounts of CBN, but very oftentimes too, it'll be, the total kind of the cannabinoids we're quantifying, which include delta-8, there'll be like 30-40% total cannabinoids. But then there'll be on a chromatogram, all kinds of these, peaks in all these places that aren't kind of cannabinoids we're testing for. And they're kind of like breakdown products, isomers. There's all these things happening whenever people are using, high heat in their distillation process. And also whenever there's like shifts in pH in the recycling solvent they're using. Exactly. And so we notice kind of these kind of, so then we get a lot of shit from people. They're like, this is impossible. It tests 20 to 40% cannabinoids and you guys are clearly fucked up. But it's like there's way too high of a statistical kind of reality of what we see in the data for it to be, it's like, it's clear in the chromatogram. We're not quantifying these other compounds. We don't even necessarily know what these other compounds are, but they're there and they're being created as a byproduct of a lot of high heat, post-processing, all these kind of, post-processes that are, steps that are being done to kind of either filter, attempts to filter out pesticides, or to kind of further clean up and and make the product more clear. But one thing we know for sure is like there's the in continued retesting and retesting of these products. It's like the data stands, and it's like a lot of the total potential delta-9 THC that could be distilled in the process end up kind of creating these other byproducts. And so what those byproducts are, what the medical efficacy of these products are, is unknown, but I'm very curious about it because it's one of the most kind of controversial topics that we see kind of in those that we serve. Because more and more people are getting they're getting into thin film or molecular distillation or wiped film distillation. They don't. A lot of people have a lot of substantial science kind of background that are applying these tools to make distilling concentrates, but a lot of them don't. And it's fascinating because stoner ingenuity and is very often kind of stumbling into kind of creating these very interesting compounds. And for a really long time, delta-8 was considered not to have medicinal benefits, but more and more is showing that there are all kinds of different medicinal benefits. And so it's like, well, what are these other isomer products being created, and are there benefit to them, or is there some potential detriment to them? I think a lot of that's unknown.
It's totally unknown, and it's I think they gotta we got to keep in the context too is that they're paying you guys a set fee for one test, right? And sure, you've got a margin built into that fee, which is normal for any business, but that doesn't mean that you have to that you're expected to go in and identify every single molecule that's in their mixture. I mean, that's a series of different tests, right? And that cost should be borne by the producer, and especially when it's a producer that's putting something on the market for a commercial purpose, right? You got to know what's in your product, right? You can't, especially when you're doing all this chemistry, you have to know what's in the final product that you're putting out into people's hands. And I think that's really missing in our community a lot, because everybody's used to this situation where you grow it, you extract it, you sell it, you go on vacation, right? And you don't have to people aren't used to being held accountable like every other business in the world is, right? Like you have to be.
And I think it's a good point too, because like now that transparency and accountability is kind of being demanded by the marketplace and being somewhat forced by regulation, it's really kind of it's now one of those things is like what you pay attention to, you become conscious of. Because for the last decade, a lot of really well-intentioned extract artists and people making extracts have in so many ways been peddling pesticides and tons of contaminants in their extracts because they're running these closed loop processes. They're just running, material from any farmer or any broker bringing them any material, and it's like, one dude's bad habits or, choices and justifying and spraying systemic pesticides and fungicides, then getting in the extraction process, then stay in the process. And then without your knowledge, you're kind of putting out this fuego to the market, kind of justifying these super high prices and getting them. But now I think that, people are demanding testing and people are demanding transparency and accountability. It's really putting it on people's minds where it's like, now that what are you going to do about it? It's like, you have to kind of evolve your process. You have to kind of, do the due diligence to, ensure that what you are putting on the market is in fact kind of, free and clear of a lot of these kind of harmful, pesticide considerations. But yeah, also kind of, and I don't necessarily know the answers to the delta A or the distillation kind of isomerization type realities of what's happening. Because we're not set up, we're set up as a throughput analytical testing lab with the services that we offer, testing for the certain compounds we're testing for. It's like, are we missing compounds? Yeah, there are tons of more terpenes that we could be testing for. There are a lot of people are like, why aren't you guys testing for these alcohol esters and flavonoids? Or how can you tell us more about these random peaks that are kind of being created as a byproduct of heat process distillation or kind of shifts in pH, and it's like, well, we're not that. That's not.
Like you sound like it 10 years ago when people were like, all right, so you got THC, so where's your pesticide testing? So as we know, it's a step-by-step process, and what I've dealt with, decade of frustration of being a pioneer in testing, it's been nothing but a challenge. And the repeated reality is, people were like, okay, well, now you've got this many pesticides. Well, do you have the full spectrum? Okay, well, now you got 39. So do you have all of them now? So no one is ever going to be satisfied, and that's good. That's what we want. That's the great thing about where we are in this snapshot in time. It's past us, We all wanted to see cannabis grow up and be legal. Well, now it is. And now everybody's bitching and complaining about what's going on now that we're here. And, oh, shit, now it's being taxed. Well, I remember people sitting around saying, as long as you tax it, I don't care what happens. Well, now that it's being taxed, it's going to be taxed, and people are reaping the benefits from it. And on top of that, you have to have testing because we have to be considered like any other product on the market. I am so thankful nowadays that I will not be the only one bearing that burden anymore, that the entire state will, so that not only will they be testing for the THC, CBD, etc., they're also going to be testing for all the pesticides and stuff like that, which I've watched countless of vendors go all around me and sell to my competition because they don't actually test as hard or as strict as we do. So I can't go out there and yell and scream. I can only sit back and literally watch in frustration as I watch the market have to absorb that type of bullshit. But
and heartened by have to absorb the cost of that in California now.
And honestly,
it'll go out of state. That's the reality. It'll go out. It'll go elsewhere. I mean, remember, these studies have stated that 1/3 of grows are going to stay illegal, regardless of legality in whatever legal market. So, 1/3. Think of that. That's significant. That's not a significant drop per se. I mean, it is. It's going to be, but a lot of people who are going to be reaping the benefits by doing it right.
Yeah, listen, can I just say one more thing too, Alec? I mean, you're talking about these transformations, these chemical alterations that are going on in the molecules. And, I think there is a little bit of I hear it all the time, that people finger pointing at the lab and say, well, you didn't do this, and you didn't do this. And it's like, listen, chemistry analytics has cost money, right? Like, there has to be some personal responsibility on the behalf of the producers, and whether that's manufacturers of equipment or manufacturers of flowers, that it's like, it's your product, right? Like, you're the one that has to ensure that your stuff is safe, right? You don't get to just stand back and point at the lab and say, well, they made a peak that they can't identify. It's like, yeah, they identify that there's a peak for you, and that's the beginning of a road to a journey of knowledge, right? Like, when you get, like, that's how science works. It's like, you don't get every answer. You get a series of answers, then you also get a series of questions, and the next step is taking those questions and following up on them.
No, it's awesome.
Right.
And,
so
yeah,
I don't know. It's like, it's part of the maturation of the industry, you know, and it's actually, when we talk regulations, and I know you were saying it's up to the market to determine that. And that's a very, how do I say this without being politically incorrect? It's a very American way of looking at things, because it is such a free market driven society where, you know, this is one thing we got now in Canada with these regulations that everybody says are so harsh and so hard to get through and expensive and blah, blah, blah. But it's like, you know what? I'm actually really proud of our regulations. Like, I'm proud that people are having to step up their game, and there's a set of rules, right? That, like, essentially someone's come in and the government's come in and set a bar, and we can argue whether the bar's set at the right level. But essentially it says, no, if you're going to do this, you have to bring it up to this level. Right. And
the bar is set high, that's for sure. I like it too. Anyone that's ever been in one of the well-built Canadian licensed production facilities, you can't help but go, wow.
No, they're doing it right, man. And even the stuff that's not as good as it could be. I mean, every iteration gets better, right? Again, it's like we were saying before about the science. It's like, you get answers to a bunch of stuff, and then you get questions about a bunch of stuff, and you figure those questions out, and you give answers to them too, right? It's like, it's part of our evolution as an industry.
Right.
But the science is starting to show. I mean, there's all the science that's coming out of these grows and chemical analytics. I was at the ICRS this year, and, you know, there was someone presented a poster, and she showed that they were going, again, like Chaldeau's been saying with the terps, that also with the cannabinoids are going through these transformations, right? There's chemistry going on in the process, and they're creating things like sesquicbg from CBG, right? Some stuff's going down, some stuff's going up, and, you know, we have to do these tests. It's better to do these tests with knowledge than it is to just, like, you know, cross our fingers and kind of blindly jump off the cliff, right? It's like, you can't, it's not okay to just be taking products and making extracts and doing chemistry and then putting those products on the market into other people's hands when you don't even know what's in it. Or you don't know what the safety profiles of the things are in it. Like, that's, to me, that's not okay.
No, exactly. And you know, and for so long, you know, ignorance is bliss has been able to kind of be a scapegoat to, you know, do whatever it takes, you know, and, you know, in so many ways, thanks to, you know, pioneering groups like Etienne, BPG, and so many of the clients that we work with, you know, people have taken such personal expense on whenever it wasn't required to show and prove where they're at, to substantiate quality, and to, you know, at the utmost level, look out for patient consumer safety. You know, and you know, whenever it wasn't cool and it was just an added expense that's going to take away from your bottom line, you know, people that shouldn't even necessarily have the burden to do the testing, like a dispensary, have been the ones that are doing it actively to, you know, try to, on their own, you know, microcosm level, be able to
but we could afford to.
Yeah, true. No,
okay,
absolutely.
Let's be honest. It was hella expensive out the get-go. I had to do, like I said, I did 1,500 tests with a laboratory that isn't even doing this anymore. Okay, so I know what it's like to throw hundreds of thousands of dollars, you know, at something that we hope to become science. And it became science. It become replicated science that is now we can all benefit from. But yeah, I mean, you had to. I mean, if we were giving this stuff to patients, we had to make sure that we weren't killing them. So we wanted to make sure we were doing microbials early on as well, because I had gotten and Debbie, my business partner, she had gotten a respiratory infection from a cannabis that we bought, that we had looked through all our microscopes and everything, and our organoleptic testing showed us it was clear and good to go, but it failed along the way, and we both got sick from it. And we both lost days of work. And from that frustration of, losing both people who are running the company, it was, it's not an easy thing to do, as we all know, as we all run our companies. When you lose major players, that can really set things back and be very frustrating. So out of that, it led to just the idea we need to know what's going and growing. And then it sparked into THC testing and getting the actual percentages of THC. And then that started off to be an initial clusterfuck because we didn't release the data. Other people had released the data, and then it caused a huge ripple amongst consumers as well as amongst growers because people didn't understand what these numbers meant. And we knew that the THC numbers rectified somewhere with the CBD and the other numbers, but for some reason everybody was looking at the THC numbers all of a sudden like it was Everclear and alcohol, high alcohol, that you've got you've got your beer and then you go straight into your 90 proof, your 110 or up to your 190, and everybody all of a sudden wanted to vie for the higher numbers. So it was an immediate quasi conundrum for a lot of us because we wanted the data out there. However, we weren't properly conveying what this data was to the consumer. And so the consumer was just running with it like it did for any other type of consumer product that, the higher number must be better. And as we know, that's not necessarily the case.
No, exactly. And that's a bit of the disservice.
We all felt and were susceptible to that early on.
Totally. No, and that's a bit of the disservice I think that the labs as a whole have brought to the industry is, I mean, and I mean, exactly like you spelled out, though, it's been this evolving process. When there wasn't a demand for testing, there started to be this slow kind of demand because people like yourself were kind of, instituting it into your process, and so slowly over time, the demand for the different array of tests kind of has expanded, and then regulations has slowly defined things, but up to this point, kind of, before terpene testing, and before labs were all doing terpene testing, it in a bit of a way, kind of, just testing for cannabinoids and THC being the one analyte people are focusing on, it really kind of almost misinformed and conditioned so much of the marketplace in this really wrong way, and almost somewhat dangerous way for a lot of people. Because then you have bud tenders that, are young, don't necessarily know any better, that are kind of, using kind of THC as a metric for quality.
Well, and then you had people posting on
testing THC strains to new time vets and old patients with post-traumatic stress or cancer that have never used cannabis before. And so, in so many ways, it's just been this continuing evolutionary process of kind of demanding more from the labs, demanding more from those that are making the products, but, taking on the expense before, it was a thing, I think is definitely repeatedly worth mentioning because, it was paying $7,200 back in the day for pounds of herb, and then doing testing on top of that, just so that you can show these things, kind of was just an added expense when most people weren't taking it. Now that kind of that's shifting and, the marketplace is demanding kind of transparency. It's really before
the market is also going to be demanding that you accept, as the farmer, you accept that as a responsibility of your growing, is also accepting responsibility of that testing. So, it's a shared burden by all. I know I'm going to pay more for that in the end because of it. That's how it's done, but that's just how the marketplace is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and but then rightfully so, kind of, the testing and the burden of proof is on the people making the products. And so I think that's a good thing about, the regulated kind of market, because, it's helping to essentially, if you're growing products and you're trying to get them out into the market, it's like you have to kind of prove in a bit of a way, what's up, and ignorance is bliss is no longer a thing. And ignorance is, if anything, going to get you quickly catapulted out of the industry. The landmine field in front of us, of the pesticides and, kind of all these aspects of sloppy production or, not conscious understanding of supply chain management and where, you can introduce these certain contaminants into your process. Those things are the things that are going to get you ejected real quick, And so I think those that have been working through the minefields for up to this point and have done testing to kind of learn the lessons and to learn the hard lessons oftentimes equate to having to destroy product are kind of the things that now are going to make you most succeed in the coming, in the coming years, because a lot of people that are new and just coming in, with really high projections about how much money they're going to make, they have such a like body of knowledge that they have yet to acquire or have yet to fall on their face to learn. And so, I think it's really going to serve those that, took the initiative to figure it out. And so, again, big ups.
Thank you. And speaking of, just want to give a shout out to Berkeley Patients Group, because next week we turn 18. We're old enough to vote. Not bad. Can't hear you, Bubble Man, for some reason.
I said congratulations, but also that Bubble Bags is turning 18 in March. So just a couple more months, 3-4 more months.
Well, that's quite a milestone, Etienne. Congratulations. And Mark,
Big
we'll get
time.
you when you get there.
Yeah,
Congratulations
18 years, man. Jesus.
Congratulations and happy birthday to you both.
Thank you to many people who made that possible, and a long, strong 5-year fight against government to make it a reality. So it's been a ride.
I think I met Debbie around 18 years ago.
Yeah.
Here in BC, like at my house in Lions Bay, like a couple of doors over from where I am right now, in fact.
Yeah, they went and they visited, Hillary and them. They wanted to see what was going on there and look to, what you guys were doing to also reflect, the compassion and understanding that was going on there. So it was an international effort after seeing things that went on in the Netherlands and things, unionizing like the Dutch did, where we all were together in Oaksterdam and things like that. And it's been a long, amazing trip, and it's been a fun ride, just needless to say, because Oaksterdam's also coming up on its birthday too, and big ups there, because that was a major spread that started. That was our failed initiative here in California that led to the successes in Oregon and Washington and Colorado and other states. Once we failed, we showed it was possible, so everybody else decided, well, we can do it too. And Colorado became the first. God bless them. And now we're going to see what happens in 2018. There should be more. We anticipate, hopefully, more states are coming online here real soon, which will, it's just like the medical cannabis. We started off with 1, now it's over 28. So we're over 50% now in the United States. We just have to push it a little further, and here very soon with legalized cannabis, New York State's very jealous of DC, and the Florida isn't happy with just its medical. So it's gonna be interesting to see what happens here in 2018 and 2020.
Indeed.
Forever.
What year would that have been that they came out here to Vancouver? Was that 97?
No, that would have been 99. 99. Yeah, it would have been 99, because they opened up in the latter part of 99. I believe they went on a spring tour or something like that with a group that just Debbie, of course, we had the Cannabis Action Network and such back then, and that was my original way to Canada back in 93, doing a rally there in Vancouver, but we got kicked out because of Elvis medical marijuana, so we were never allowed to actually do that. So that was just part of the frustration. But yeah, it's been a ride, and we still got a long ways to go, as you can see by just our discussion of science and everything else. I mean, we're just getting online here with regulations here in California, and with machinery and technology and all that. It's I've only seen a small blip of it, but it all goes back to that man sitting there, as a little plush sitting there in a seat there, by the name of Skunkman Sam, that made a lot of what we have today possible through genetics. So big ups to you, sir. It's never forgotten.
No problem. I was happy to do it at the time. It's been my life.
No doubt. I bet you were happy to do it.
Sam, what's up with the CBG varieties? You got any of those?
We developed an almost pure CBG variety, correct?
Is the pathway towards a CBG dominant varietal kind of because of some type of genetic, mutation or something in the synthase genes, or is that just a natural process that strains can go through? Because oftentimes we'll test.
No, it's a particular group of synthases. You can read the paper if you don't have it. send me an email and I'll send it to you, or contact me.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's. I think it's actually a little more complicated than the paper suggests. We've done some work in that area.
That's a good a place to start understanding it.
Yeah, it is. It's essentially what it is there's we got versions of CBD acid synthase and THC acid synthase, and there's versions on both that don't work, or they call them minimally functional. So, as anybody that knows the biochemistry, CBG acid is the precursor to both CBD and THC. So if you have broken machinery that turns up, that turns CBG acid into THC or CBG acid into CBD, and those enzymes aren't working properly, then what happens is you have a backup of CBG.
Yeah, because most of the samples we've ever tested, CBGA will see, maybe 2.5–3% most in certain varietals. A lot
actually 3% is quite high. Ours was only maybe triple that or a little bit more.
Wow. Because but typically every time we ever see that, it'll either be in a terpinolene osamine variety of a THC dominant terpinolene osamine variety with maybe 2.5% CBGA, or it'll be a myrcene osamine THC variety where same thing, it'll be mostly THCA, but then 2.5–3% CBGA. And so, having no idea what's up there, just seeing kind of the common thing across those as,
Does that mean anything to you, Ryan?
Yeah, well, not the terpinolene one, but I think I know where those are coming from. But the CBG acid in the myrcene osamine profile, I'm assuming that you're seeing about myrcene 2:1 over osamine.
Right. Yeah, or more. Typically it'll be primary myrcene, but then 2:1 or 3:1 kind of myrcene osamine.
Yeah. So that myrcene osamine smell is what I call sweet hemp. I don't think it's a very pleasant smell myself. It's
that's what a lot of people are calling like mangoes or papayas or green crack, dream queen. Kind of all that stuff, what we've seen, are in that kind of group. But, we very rarely see osamine or osamine as a primary terpene. But whenever it shows up as, kind of a secondary terpene, it seems to be either tracking with the myrcene grouping or with the terpinolene grouping on the other side of it.
Yeah,
you never really see it kind of with other
I think there's a myrcene synthase that produces both myrcene and osamine in about a 2:1, 3:1 ratio, and it varies between alleles of that particular type.
It is interesting though, because we've seen kind of a couple different, like in the pines. In the pines has been this awesome, pineapple too. Tropical fruit smells, I guess, like mango, papaya, pineapple. Oftentimes will be really high myrcene and then a little bit of osamine. But we have seen from a couple different groups that sprouted a bunch of like in the pine seeds, which is this pretty awesome pineapple type smell from up in Mendo, the Emerald Triangle, that has been historically kind of in the top 10 at the Emerald Cup for many years. But when people sprouted some seeds, we started to see a couple of those phenos be either 1:1 like balance of myrcene and osamine, or in certain cases, we've seen a couple of these that are osamine dominant.
Yeah, but those are all in type 1 plants. So I was trying to go back to what you were talking about with the type 4 plants, which are the CBG plants.
Okay, yeah, please.
So if you go back and you look at those and you see that myrcene and osamine, usually, like Sam was saying, the total cannabinoid level is actually quite low. And in most of the CBG varieties, not all of them, but most of the ones that you see on the market, they were derived from hemp populations. Okay, so your total cannabinoid volume switch is actually turned down quite low. So in the process of turning that up by hybridizing it with drug cultivars over and over again, and then selecting for the CBG mutation, you start to change the terpene profile away from that like hempy, sweet kind of hempy smell into something a little more dank, right? So there are varieties now. I was just in Spain about 3 weeks ago visiting with a good friend of mine over there. They have a license. They have the only license in Spain to produce THC plants. And I went down to their research facility in southwestern Spain, with Dr. Riz. And we saw a whole bunch of different CBG varieties and CBD, CBDV varieties, and some CBD varieties they're working on with a molecule called canoprene. So there are people that are breeding those lines up. It's not very dank, the CBG stuff. It's like, it's funny. One of the things about CBG, when you see these CBG plants, the trichomes are white. Okay, they're not sticky and they're kind of dry feeling, kind of like grainy, sandy feeling when the trichomes are white. And it's because the CBG, it doesn't dissolve into the oleo resin like CBD or THC acid would. So they actually have a different texture on the flower, and it's not oily, it's not sticky, and there's nothing fun about it, you know.
Wow. You know, what's really fascinating to me about the kind of CBG and stuff is there's this paper I oftentimes reference about the anti-inflammation effects of cannabis, and I'll find the paper and post it up, but it's about the potential cyclooxygenase inhibition of 6 primary cannabinoids. And it basically, you know, there's this chart that I'll kind of I'll throw up on the chat, but it shows, you know, the percent inhibition of COX-1 and COX-2, COX-1, COX-2, which are the enzymes in our body responsible for producing inflammation.
Yeah, COX-2, just so people can get an idea or some kind of context on COX-2, ibuprofen is a COX-2 inhibitor.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And so, and you know, and correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I knew, yeah, pretty much all the non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs like ibuprofen, Motrin, and stuff pretty much act on one or either or both. Is that right or wrong?
I'm not.
COX-2.
I mean, I'm not a pharmacologist, so I can't say.
Yeah. But regardless, you know, kind of this chart shows both inhibition of COX-1 and inhibition of COX-2. And when you look at the 6 primary cannabinoids that this paper is talking about, CBD and THC actually kind of have almost negative inhibition. I think CBD has, you know, certain, like, you know, 25-30% inhibition of one of the enzymes. But when you look at CBG and CBGA, you know, they both have they Richter kind of like all the other cannabinoids potential to inhibit those enzymes and have almost up to 100% inhibition on those 2 enzymes. And so it's really fascinating to kind of, you know, think about and postulate, you know, anti-inflammation, I guess, in treating illness, you know, because most disease and disorder in one way or another is rooted in some type of systemic inflammation, you know. And so, you know, just kind of, you know, understanding how many people across America and the world, you know, are taking horse pills of these non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. And then, you know, long-term, how much those drugs do damage, you know, to your kidneys and liver and such. It's like, fuck.
Yeah, well, and, you know, there's also some of these other NSAIDs a bunch of years ago, and it wasn't that long ago, maybe 5-8 years ago, but they started realizing that some of these COX-2 inhibitor drugs, these NSAIDs, they're giving people heart attacks, right? Like they were on the market, and then they realized that like a whole bunch of people had a way higher incidence of heart problems.
Yeah, you know, and so it's like for these non-psychoactive kind of CBG components of cannabis to be able to completely, you know, knock that out and inhibit those enzymes, it's like that's so much way. It seems like the path forward to creating like the miracle anti-inflammation drugs of the future. But it's like, where are those compounds? You know, it's like,
yeah. But I mean, here's the next question. I mean, are we going to be smoking those things, or are they going to become, you know, are they going to become formulations into other products? Right. It's part of that transition that the medical marijuana industry is going to go through, is that at some point in time, a lot of these things are going to be, it's going to be like Epidiolex, right? Like somebody's going to take CBG and they're going to put it through the FDA process. And then the FDA is going to start sending out a bunch of letters to everybody that's making CBGA or CBG products on the market, right? Like we've already been through this once. This whole thing is going to happen over and over again with every one of these compounds, right? So
it's rinse, lather, repeat, pretty much.
It is rinse, lather, but it's like this, and this is what happens when we bring cannabis into the real world, right? Like if we're going to start trying to exploit these compounds for fun, you know, we start entering a world that's, you know, it's a different world than the dispensary world, right? And I think with good reason, you know, I think we should be wary of people saying, oh, I've got this, you know, green crack variety, for example, with 2% CBGA. I mean, 2% CBGA by weight of a gram. I mean, Really? Like, is that the way that you're going to be taking that? Is smoking up a joint of like a 2% CBGA variety?
Yeah, and then whenever you burn it, it combusts like half to more of what's there. So it's like the potential 20 milligrams or less. Yeah.
Here's something that's really been helping me. Speaking of inflammation, I've been dealing with some inflammatory pain and like repetitive motion injuries just from my job there and carpal tunnel issues. And in Washington State, our dispensaries got taken away from us and our medical marijuana program was decimated. So now pills like this that contain high amounts of CBG without any THC in them are illegal in Washington State, and I can't purchase these. So I have to go back to the black market to obtain medicines that actually provide like cannabinoid therapy for me.
So what's the source of that CBG in those pills then?
That's a super good question. I don't have an answer to it. I don't know. I don't have a verified lab report to know the details of what it is because our marketplace has taken those products off the shelves.
So have you had those pills analyzed?
No, I haven't. I only got 10 of them to try out, and I didn't have the money to go send them to a lab.
Yeah, well, it's the ridiculous, the system, right? Every time we want to know what's in our medicine, we got to go and pay for a lab test.
Right, but we could have a marketplace that allows cannabinoid medicines to be produced in 502 and then go to these same testing labs that we send all our other products to and put on the shelf for people to use as medicines. But for whatever reason, Washington State decided that products that are sold in our retail stores have to contain THC. And so that knocked out a really big variety of actual medicines that really helped a lot of people like me and patients I used to make medicines for and work with back in the med days here.
Yeah, well, don't get me wrong. Again, I'm not trying to come off standing all pharma that everything's got to be FDA approved. But what I'm not okay with is people putting products on the market that say they are CBD and then they're not.
Right? Absolutely. No, I agree with you there. If I'm going to spend my money on a CBG product to help me, I want it to actually help.
If that's extracted from a plant source, and it's CBG, I bet you anything there's some THCA or THC in it.
Yep, I was told that each of these pills has 110 milligrams of CBG, 35 milligrams of THCA, and about 10 milligrams of THCV. And it was created from an old Toby varietal. But again,
okay. Might be right on for all I know.
Right, and I have no reason to doubt it, but I also don't have any reason to trust it because I don't have a lab report for it, so I don't know.
And that's the thing, right? So it's like we're kind of stuck in a tough situation where when you don't have any reason to doubt it, but that doesn't mean that you also have any reason to believe it. I mean, we're still stuck in the middle.
I just got my own bioassay where I was not able to get a night's sleep. I'd wake up at 3, 4 a.m. and my arms would be either asleep or burning. And now after a week of taking these pills, I sleep all the way through the night and I wake up and my arms are on fire.
Right, but then with all those compounds in it being a mixture, I mean, and it's probably got terps in there too. It's like, how do you pinpoint what the active ingredient?
Which, if it was even one specific compound, or if it's the variety of things,
or it's the synergy between all of them. I mean, we don't know that, and that's really what we're missing in this world is the science, right? That backs all this stuff up.
I would like to be able to work on products like this and have them go to labs and get tested and know exactly what's in them, and then deliver those to patients and consumers that want them.
Yeah, well then you find something that works. You find something that works, and all of a sudden it's gone. It's pulled off the market, right? It's like the whole situation is really kind of silly right now. I mean, it is a very tough question to answer because there's all these compounds in the plant, and maybe not in one given plant, but in the species and in the selection of plants that we all work with. There's whether it be different terpene types or different cannabinoid types, it's a massive polyfactorial experiment with hundreds of thousands of people at least, and they're all taking different amounts and they're all taking different things, and some people are having success and some people aren't having success, and that's a really hard nut to crack from a research point of view to start figuring these things out.
Especially when the people that aren't having success don't know for sure what they're taking and whether they should be having success with it or not.
Yeah. Hey, Alec, what do you got going on there? Maybe Marcus can click your camera and we can...
Yeah, no, I was... this is that chart I was talking about, from this paper. It's called Evaluation of the Cyclooxygenase Inhibiting Effects of 6 Major Cannabinoids Isolated from Cannabis Sativa. And, the black bar is... COX-1, and then the gray bar is COX-2. So it shows the percent inhibition of each one of these cannabinoids, and it is a trip because if you look at THC and CBD, they kind of almost have this weird negative inhibition, which I don't even really know what that means. But then whenever you look at the acidic cannabinoids, you know, as THCA, CBDA, and then even more CBG and CBGA, it's crazy how much CBG and CBGA have for both COX-1 and COX-2 in inhibiting, you know, both these kind of enzymes up to, you know, almost 100%.
Well, look at the other thing that's really interesting to me, at least on that graph, is that the acidic forms, which are the ones that are natural in the plant that you find when you don't decarboxylate through, you know, chemistry or you don't smoke it. I mean, those compounds are, it looks like, you know, THCA, CBDA, and CBGA are more effective than any of the other the neutral forms.
Yeah, no, exactly, and that's what's such a trip too, because you know it's fascinating with because so often, and this is a bit aside, but I mean, I kind of think it ties in a little bit to the point. But you know, so many times, like people that are making infused products, you know, they're taking like some type of extract, right, from like a quote sativa or quote indica strain, right, with certain terpenes dominant in each, and they decarboxylate that oil. So pretty much they boil off any and all the remaining terpenes that are there. So what they create is like a fully decarboxylated, you know, kind of delta-9 THC extract that then they're infusing into an edible or infused product, and they're heating further to make the edible or infused product. But then they're labeling these products like, you know, an indica edible or a sativa edible, you know, and it's funny because I feel like there's so much, you know, it's almost like suggestive selling and like trying to push people's placebo effects, because, you know, most of these products where people will take a strain, decarboxylate oil, put it in and call it a sativa or indica edible, you know, they're kind of really what it is just high THC. And I think, you know, so much of like why it affects somebody one way or another more has to do with dose. And then, yeah, the time of day they're taking it, whether they're taking it on an empty stomach or a full stomach, whether or not they have a hyperactive or underactive metabolism, whether or not they're like sedentary and, you know, playing video games all day long, or whether or not they have a, you know, an active lifestyle where they're running all the time, because all those things are going to express your endocannabinoid tone in one way or another and how active or underactive it is. But whenever you kind of, you know, but for whenever people are taking like these, you know, acidic cannabinoids, you know, like in these high concentrations or what have you, you know, not only does it seem like it, you know, from this chart, it shows that, you know, they're inhibiting and, you know, these enzymes, but, you know, also whenever people are juicing or, you know, doing like unheated kind of extracts put into kind of infused products so that it's all in the THCA or CBDA form, they're also then actually getting whatever concentrations of terpenes are in there into the infused product that people are then ingesting. And so it's interesting to think about, you know, what a true kind of, you know, plant-derived terpene infused product, what that would do if it does, you know, stimulate a stimulating effect or a sedating effect, but then how much those terpenes also play a role maybe in, you know, what's happening here with these kind of inhibition of these, you know, inflammatory enzymes. But yeah. I don't know. I just find it really funny though, because a lot of people kind of will always say indica or sativa in their edibles whenever it's pretty much just THC, you know, but, you know, and, you know, oftentimes when I'm doing kind of a lot of education and seminars for like dispensaries and bud tenders, you know, I'm trying to kind of really, you know, I always show this slide because I'm like, you know, this is the, you know, the acidic cannabinoids are the most, if you counted all the kind of cumulative cannabinoids that are held in your shop, you know, it's all THCA or CBDA, primarily THCA, but nobody's ever guiding people towards taking those, whether it's, you know, juicing fresh bud or leaf, whether it's grinding up fresh bud and putting it like in a smoothie or something, or whether that's eating little amounts of, you know, unheat processed kind of extracts that are more high in acidic cannabinoids. But in either way, it seems like we all could benefit so much more from acidic cannabinoids, you know, especially, you know, with the anti-inflammation effects, you know, particularly because of, you know, how most disease and disorder, you know, are rooted in systemic inflammation. And that's typically because of the shit food choices we put into our bodies and the toxic environment we live in and, you know, the fucking chemicals that we expose ourselves to because, you know, all the pesticides and fucking glyphosate that are in everything. But, you know, it seems like the acidic cannabinoids provide a roadmap for us to help. You know, Dr. Courtney, he gave me my first, or I got my first recommendation from Dr. William Courtney, who's kind of this like black sheep medical doctor, you know, that was really like in so many ways like the, you know, I mean, it's so funny because he would be presenting and I would see Ethan Russo like balking at him like in crowds where he was presenting. But, you know, he was way ahead of his time, you know, and he turned me on to acidic cannabinoids and he turned me on to CBD, you know, whenever I was living up in Mendo, and really sparked passion in my life about it. And so since then, I've just been really pushing people to like, you know, look at the diverse profile of cannabinoids that you could be taking, because most people are, you know, puffing it, getting high. THC is the main thing, but it's like, we need more of these, like what he would call dietary essential cannabinoids in our life, you know, and he believes that, you know, one day society will view the acidic cannabinoids as much of a dietary essential as, you know, we're currently considering omega acids, you know, just keeping kind of, you know, keeping our life, you know, in the preventative kind of state of not being too inflamed.
Listen, I mean, I'm all over what you're saying. I want to just say one thing about the inflammation being the genesis of all the disease. That may or may not be true, right? It's tough to say whether the inflammation is the cause or like a byproduct of. So
right, correlation's not causation.
I would definitely just be careful when you're saying that at dispensaries, because I don't know if we know that to be true yet or not. But I do agree with almost everything that you're saying.
Nice.
And you know what, Courtney, you know, history will be the teller of what happens over time, you know, whether he's a kook or a visionary. And
totally.
And I know that some people see him that way, and you know, he does say some kind of kooky things at times as well, but I think he also has a lot of he's got a lot of good information, and he stumbled on something that I think a lot of people probably weren't looking at, because again, we've been so focused on the neutral forms of the cannabinoids. I mean, even in the way we used to do everything by GC, right? Like, you know, back then you'd look at a GC trace and you'd think to yourself, oh, well, the plant produces THC. Well, it doesn't produce THC. It produces THC acid. It's that the analytical method that they were using makes it seem that way. But, you know, again, we got to apply the right tests to the, you know, to be able to pull the answer out, the true answer out of it. So it's not just like throwing some science at it, we're going to get the answer, right? Remember, science is like anything. It needs to be validated. It needs to be shown over time by multiple sources. It's not just one paper that says something and it's the truth, right? It's a discovery that we go through over time.
Sure.
So great info, Alec. Thanks for sharing that, man.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, very, very good information. Good conversation. Last hour of Hash Church, just blasting it out. I love it.
Hey, Mark, I found that paper and put it in our little our Hangouts chat. I don't know if you can post that in the YouTube chat so people can find the paper if they don't have the resources or access to looking those things up.
Absolutely, I'll post it. I will post it right now.
Glad you came on, Alec. You always spur really good conversation. It's glad you stopped in.
No, thank you. And yeah, no, super appreciate everything. I always appreciate being on and appreciate being checked, man. Like, you know, it's like, you know, and yeah, Ryan, that's what's so awesome, man, is like you're super indiscriminate with like science being the way forward and the way you word things, you know, and so I appreciate that because, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of contributing factors to why disease and disorder exist. Inflammation's part, but may not be the main proponent. So thank you on that.
Yeah, well, as much as we know, we got to remember that we really don't know anything with how the human body works and how the brain works. I mean, we've got a few things figured out, but really, when we're throwing these compounds in, we're just like flipping levers and pressing buttons, you know? Oh, look, what happens here? And we don't really understand all the mechanisms involved. And I think that that's also important to keep in mind.
Exactly.
You know, it's like, you know, everybody, you see all this stuff in the average media, not the scientific literature, but it just in the media about, you know, even, you know, cannabis kills cancer. And it's like, well, there might be some compounds that have certain anti-cancer properties against certain types of cancer, but to say that, you know, cannabis kills cancer, it's just not true. And it does the plant a disservice when we try to overgeneralize. And I find that we're like, you know, at that point in time, we're no better than the DEA saying that there's no value, right? Because the truth is somewhere in the middle. And I think less like trying to reach too far, it really does the truth it does the truth a disservice for one, but it also does the plant a disservice because it really can do some things. And then if we start claiming that it can do all these other things that it can't do, then people are they're not going to believe the things that it can do, right?
Exactly.
Maybe I didn't explain that very well, but
no, you're right. I mean, by overstating, and being too fanatical about what we're trying to express, definitely is food or whatever, food for fodder for like the opposition to kind of discredit the argument.
Yeah, we have a moral responsibility. I mean, we're only going to get ahead through the truth. So, yeah.
Well, awesome, guys. I think that was a solid conversation. I want to thank everyone for coming in today. Thank you, Chimera, for coming back, and Alec for coming in from SC Labs. Thanks, Jeremy, for coming in, and we'd love to have you back again and have some more conversation with you and find out what's going on with Build a Soil. Thanks, Skunkman Sam, and of course, Samurai Sam, for running us through a batch and always coming in and ready for the conversation. Thanks for being a part of things, dude. Thanks everyone else that has already left. And for those that never showed up this day, and of course, for the, I think, 700+ people we had watching at one point in time, you may very well see us back next week. We'll see what happens. Peace out, everybody.
Please. Blessings.
Peace.
Happy Hash Church. Happy Sunday, y'all.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Peace.